Good evening. I want to reconvene.
Are we recording, Kate?
Yes, we're
Thank you.
recording, Jen. I want to convene the regular meeting of the December 19th Brattleboro Selectboard. We know we have been properly warned because we went into executive session at 5:30. First order of business is to approve the minutes of the December 2nd and December 5th meeting. Does anyone have any comments, corrections to the minutes? If not, would someone like to make a motion?
So moved.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
We have
Tim?
we have multiple.
So moved.
We have multiple motions to approve the minutes of the December 2nd and December 5th.
We have multiple motions to adjourn.
Yeah, we can do that too. All those in favor of approving the minutes for the December 2nd and December 5th meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. I probably do have remarks, but I won't make any, so.
Why would you even say that?
Because it's right here, and we'll just move on.
No, please say some remarks.
I'll say, yeah, I could, but I won't. I'll ask the manager if he has remarks.
I don't have any this evening about anything not on the agenda.
Yeah, now
Thank you.
he's feeling pressure. Does anyone on the select board have any comments or committee reports before we get into the meat of the meeting?
No, I just have one sad note. We lost a member of the previous select board last week. Steve Stidell passed away. He was a good friend and a great member of the board for, I think he was also chair for a couple of years.
I think he was.
But just a good friend and sad to see him go. So my condolences to his family. And
Yes.
yeah.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Does anyone else have any comments or committee reports? No? Now, this is the part in the agenda for public participation, and it's a time for anyone who wants to make a comment or, I guess, make a remark on anything that is not on tonight's agenda. This is the time to do so. So if anyone would like to say something about anything that's not on the agenda,
But take a number.
this is time. Sure, sir. Come right on up. And please tell us who you are and where you are from. And the microphone does not amplify your voice. It is for the television. So you won't hear any amplification.
Okay, my name is Wayne Esty. I'm the president of the Brattleboro Artists Union, a newly formed company in Brattleboro. I have some prepared remarks if I could
Yes.
approach and give
Sure.
you a copy.
Sure.
Thank you.
Jane, I'll give you that. Oh, you go.
I live at 83 Main Street, Brattleboro. I want to quote to you something from the Town of Brattleboro Arts Commission, their mission statement. Arts is, substantial contributor to Brattleboro's identity. The integration of arts within the fabric of town government enhances the vitality of the town and the quality of life for its citizens. We wish to strengthen the bond among the town of Brattleboro, the community of Brattleboro, and the arts community to enable mutual understanding, as well as appreciation for the aesthetic and economic contributions made by the arts. Very elegant words. Unfortunately, they're followed by a list of actions the Arts Commission will serve to do, but they have been unsuccessful lately. There have been, over the years, very many well-meaning and well-intentioned, sincere members who have attempted to satisfy this mission statement, and they have sometimes succeeded and sometimes not. 4 pages deep into the town's website, information about the Art Commission directs one even deeper into the website. There were only 15 scheduled meetings, very ambitious, but only 47% of them actually were conducted. The meetings were, in total, lasted 9 hours. I suspect this board often meets more than 9 hours in one day. Apparently, the commission cannot reliably raise a quorum or attract members. There's 4 vacancies and at least 2 newspaper notices asking for people to join the board. It seems to demonstrate to me there's a gulf between the commission's mission and the potential volunteers' faith in the commission's effectiveness. No other Brattleboro commission has a higher cancellation rate. Next closest one is the Tree Commission, who meets 77% of the time. And the Cemetery Commission meets 100% of the time. And I want to hold those 2 commissions out as examples of commissions that are functioning well, apparently. The trees and the deceased are well represented in Brattleboro by these commissions. The artists, I do not believe, are as well represented. I would mention that the Tree Commission has a $2,500 budget item in the proposed, and $24,000 for the Cemetery Commission. And the Arts Commission has, let me see, 0. The Downtown Alliance has $75,000, and I believe, and I could be wrong, they're responsible for the gallery walk, and I believe that is a successful indication of their budget.
They're actually not in charge of Gallery Walk.
Thank you. That goes at the end where I want to be corrected. But I was going to leave it at the end because there's probably more inaccuracies. Another commission or group in town, the Arts Council of Windham County, is not functioning well either, in my opinion. I attended a recent board attempt meeting. There was not a quorum, I understand, and I was the only face that was there that they didn't know. So they asked me to join their board and be their treasurer. And they must have some money because they needed a stranger to take care of it. I have yet to hear back from them about what are their bylaws, what are their funding sources, what do they do? It's been a couple of weeks, but I'm sure they've backlogged in their emails. It's the only way to reach them, except unless I send them a snail mail, because there's no phone number. I'm asking the town stated goals for arts be reviewed. It was not, I noticed, part of the 2017 action plan for the town, and nothing about the arts. My background is initially as an economist. Arts are an economic driver for this size community. It's important. First, the bad areas get inhabited by artists who need cheap studio space. They eat out because they're so busy painting. Their hands are covered with toxins, so they go to the coolest restaurants, which spring up around them, and then come the brownstone-ers, if you were in New York, for example. But here, maybe it would be the wood people. I'm asking that you consider creating an agenda item for a future meeting, and maybe even consider funding some effort to accomplish the well-written, though grammatically incorrect, mission statement for the Arts Council. I am not just a problem identifier, I wish to be a problem solver, and I will participate fully. I have recently been able to secure enough signatures, 10, to become a District 3 candidate. I intend to do so, to fulfill that responsibility as the best of my ability. And I'll check I'm a member of the Chamber of Commerce. I have a business in town. I'm a retired attorney. What else am I? Recently wrote an article for the op-ed piece for the Brattleboro Reformer, highlighting some of the crazy ways artists are treating them, not just art people who paint two-dimensionally, but musicians as well, who might go to a venue, and if the bar does well, they'll get some money. The bar doesn't do well, well, maybe they'll get a couple of beers. There's no way to support the arts. Thank you for listening to me, and I hope to see you all again in a more productive and less down approach.
Thank you
Thank
so
you, Mr.
much.
Tracy.
Thank you.
all.
Thank you. That's sad.
Does anyone else have any comments about items that aren't on the agenda? We need to convene as liquor commissioners.
So moved?
We have a motion to convene as liquor commissioners. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? We are liquor commissioners. And first up is a second-class liquor license for Walgreens at 896 Putney Road. The town manager's going to fill us in.
Yes, ma'am. All the paperwork is in order. The review has been conducted by the police department and the fire department. We have received the alcohol sales policy in accordance with the new rules. And so it's before you this evening, ready to be approved. I believe there is someone here to speak for the applicant.
Sure.
Hi there, my name is Meryl Bent. I'm the local liquor licensing attorney for Walgreens. I'm from the law firm of Wilmington, Campbell, Bernal & Bent in Manchester. I think that the application's all in order, so unless you have any questions for me, I just ask that you go ahead and pass it and send it on to Montpelier.
That was pretty easy.
Thank you.
Yeah. I've got this down. We've got 30 of these.
So Walgreens isn't moving from the other spot. They're
No,
going to have
it's
two
just
stores.
opening- It's the Rite Aid location,
yep.
current Rite Aid location. So there
Oh, it didn't even occur to
I like
me
that
that
right
that's
now.
what
I
it
mean,
was.
no,
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. I forgot. No, I forgot Walgreens was buying Rite Aid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Okay. Does anyone on the board have any questions or comments about this?
Is that purchase corporate nationwide?
Yeah.
Or is it, oh,
Yeah.
I didn't even realize.
It is, but it's not all of the Rite Aid stores in the country. But all of the Vermont stores have been swept up in that transaction. I think it's about 2,000 plus stores total in the country.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're traveling around Vermont.
Yeah, fortunately for me, I'm just the Vermont attorney.
Does anyone in the public have any comments or questions about the liquor license for Walgreens on Putney Road? All right. Would someone like to make a motion?
I move to approve a second-class liquor license for Walgreens Eastern Company, Inc., located at 896 Putney Road.
We have a motion to approve a liquor license for Walgreens at 896 Putney Road. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you all.
We appreciate your coming. Next up is a first-class liquor license for Hospitality Brattleboro LLC, doing business as the Holiday Inn Express.
And this is in exactly the same status. It's been approved in the clerk's office by the police department and the fire department. And we have received the alcohol sales policy, and so it is ready for your approval. Staff recommends that you grant approval.
Great.
And I believe,
We have
again,
some-
there is someone here.
From Holiday Inn
Holiday Inn.
Express. We'll see if it goes as easily for you.
Yeah. Let's make it a little tougher.
My name is Frank LeGrand. I'm the general manager at the property. Just wanted to say I believe everything's in order and just ask for the same concession.
Now, what do you folks use the liquor license for? I think a lot of people might not know.
So we have a gift shop and really just want to have an added amenity for our guests. It's not going to be like a bar service. It's going to be single serve out of the gift shop. It'll be controlled behind the front desk where there'll be a display case, and then we'll have our supply behind the front desk.
Good idea. Does anyone on the board have any questions?
How's business?
Good.
Good.
Very good.
Excellent.
We're just
to
waiting
hear.
for snow, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had a good fourth quarter, all things considered.
Yeah, that's good.
No complaints.
It's good to hear.
Yes.
Good.
Well, I've already made one motion, so
Does
please.
somebody else want to make a motion?
I'll move to approve a first-class liquor license to Hospitality Brattleboro LLC, DBA Holiday Inn Express, Brattleboro, Vermont, located at 100 Chickering Drive.
We have a motion to approve a first-class liquor license to Hospitality Vermont, doing business as Holiday Inn Express. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Thanks, Frank.
Appreciate it. Seeing no other business under liquor commissioners, I will entertain a motion to adjourn as liquor commissioners. We have a motion to adjourn as liquor commissioners. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next up is our regular police fire facilities project update,
Almost
which
to
gets
the end.
shorter every time.
Yes, ma'am, it does. Today, I'm just advising that there's only punch list related work going on at the Central Fire Station. They're almost finished with that. I will reiterate for the public's benefit that the open house and the ribbon cutting is going to occur on Friday, January 19th. We'll be cutting a ribbon at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and then having an open house into the evening. The financial report shows an uncommitted balance of $263,606.91. We have a few final bills to pay and then expect that the next report will probably be the last report. And then we'll go meet with the committee and bring recommendations back to the board.
And the committee is
The advisory committee, the Police Fire Facility Building Committee of citizens and John Allen that you've relied upon for advice related to this project.
And the advice would be whether to replace the roof at the police station and to build a carport.
Yes,
That's probably
at least to discuss those two items and possibly other things as well once we get to the end point of the job.
Okay. And there's been no issues so far at the police department?
Correct. Nothing out of the ordinary, sort of, again, small punch list items just to adjust things there. But overall, it's a great success. The employees are happy with the space, and it's much more functional for them there. All good.
Good. Anyone on the board have any questions? Comments? Anyone in the public have any questions or comments on the police fire facilities report? Seeing none, we're going on to new business, and the first item is errors and omissions for the grand list.
Jen Vernell is here,
Yes.
our acting
Fucking
assessor.
You can come on over to our table.
Yes, get used to it.
We'll let you get all comfy.
You can bring friends, too.
Well, you can bring two.
So you're going to
everyone.
explain what this is all about?
I'm Jennifer, the Assistant Assessor, Acting Head of the Department. This is the errors and omissions, the final stage of closing our grand list for 2017. You have in front of you the spreadsheet of the changes that were made from lodging the grand list to what needed to be changed after we first lodged the grand list. And these need to be approved by the select board. Anything more? Do you want me to explain some of them?
Yeah, well,
Right. I'd like to just supplement that with one point, which is it's an error and omissions report because that's what it has to be called under state statutes. Normally, we think of errors and omissions as being, corrections of mistakes. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
In this case, actually, what it represents almost exclusively is circumstances that have changed since the grand list was lodged. So there have been appeals filed, and those things have been resolved, and so the revised amounts are in here. And in some cases, additional documentation was provided that shows that the initial number wasn't a correct number, but it wasn't that it was poor judgment. It was that the documentation, the additional documentation indicates a different value. And in one case, a property has become tax exempt since the grand list was lodged. So.
and the overall number is $2,241,723.
That's
So
correct.
that's a reduction in the number that,
That was originally lodged.
Right.
Correct.
That's correct.
and to get the change, the person has to do a grievance hearing or something. Is there a process for that?
So There were abatements. Okay, so the top, there are two in here that are based on abatement. There was fire damage to one property. I will say that at times there can be the wrong value was inappropriately placed in the grand list, human error, and we need to adjust it to make it appropriate. So the bottom were based on business licenses filed late. So in one instance, we did not have a value, a business personal property value, and the assessor had to make a judgment or use prior year value. And when the business personal property form did come in, the new value was placed in the 2017 grand list. So if that's helpful for an explanation.
Yeah.
And in that last category, 6 of the 11 that have been adjusted have been adjusted to 0 because the businesses went out of business.
Yeah.
The overall impact of this $2 million reduction is a tiny fraction of our approximately $1.1 billion total value.
It looks huge.
I know, that's what I was just wondering. 'Cause it looks,
Put it in
when you say
perspective.
$2 million, you go, oh, it's got to take a hit. But it's not.
Does anyone on the board have any questions? Comments? Does anyone in the public have any questions and comments about the grand list? That was simple. Would someone like to make a motion?
Sure. To approve the changes in the 2017 grand list as set forth on the Errors and Omissions 2017 grand list report dated December 1st, 2017, from Acting Town Assessor Jennifer Brunel.
We have a motion to approve the changes in the 2017 grand list. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you very much. Appreciate
Just so
it.
everyone knows, this happens every year.
Yeah.
Every year this happens.
Now we're going to have the finance report.
Did everybody read it?
John, you're going to get a quiz.
No, this whole thing.
Not you, John. That John is getting quiz.
The auditor's report. I want to know if everybody read the auditor's report.
Yeah, we're going to find out.
You did.
I think, are we going to start with the?
Yes.
There are 3 things. So
There's
you're going to
3
tell us
things.
which ones we're starting with.
Yes, please. Thank you. Before the quiz begins, I want to give just a brief summary of the 2 audit reports. John can take a deeper dive there with you in any aspect of it that you'd like to talk about, and then he'll provide the usual monthly financial report. On the 2 audits, I want to note that the overall general audit of the town's financial statements and operations is clean again this year. It's been several years in a row now. There have been no findings whatsoever. So kudos to John and to the finance department team who do an excellent job of keeping nice, clean books. The report that is specific to our grant funding, which is using the federal nomenclature, it's called a single audit. That we did have a finding this year, and I want to just explain that briefly. It was an oversight where we actually did a drawdown of some funds. Normally with grants, especially with federal grants, we expend funds and then put in for reimbursement. There was an opportunity in the Brownfields grant this past year to actually draw down some funds to pay for some of the services that we needed in terms of looking at some of the different properties that are involved in that program. And we drew funds down and didn't expend all of the funds that we drew, and then held on to the money. And so everything was properly accounted for. Neither the auditors nor any of the grant authorities at the federal government or at the EPA are suggesting that there's been, anything other than a full proper accounting of the funds. But the auditors noted that when you do a drawdown in advance of federal grant funds like that, the funds are supposed to be spent within 3 days. We had the funds for substantially longer than 3 days. So when the auditor called that to our attention, we got in touch with the EPA and we made arrangements to immediately repay the balance that we were holding and to make sure that that balance would still be available later in the same grant process to be brought, be given back from the EPA to the town at a time when we had actually spent the funds and we were seeking reimbursement. So we're in the good graces of the EPA and the federal government, but it was a proper audit finding that there's this rule that you have to spend the money right away if you take an advance drawdown.
Well, that just shows that they did a good
thorough review.
Yeah.
That's true. In fact, the federal authorities we spoke to
Probably
haven't encountered that before. Mostly people seek reimbursement rather than advance, and so this was something they actually hadn't encountered before, and they learned from our auditors finding it just as we learned from it. So, yep.
How often do we go out, put out an RFP for external auditors?
We do that approximately every 5 years or so. I think our current contract, we've just finished the second year of 5. Is that correct, John? Sorry?
Every 3?
No.
Second year of 3.
Second year of 3. So we'll have one more with this firm, and then we'd be putting it out again.
That's a good cycle.
Because we did switch out. This is a new auditor than the one.
Correct.
Two
Whenever
years
there's
ago.
not many findings, I'm always like, time to switch.
Right.
That's why we switched, because it was, we just
we
sort of
actually-
worried that they get in the.
That's right. We had that same concern. Wanted to make sure there was a fresh set of eyes, but we've had clean audits both years with the fresh set of eyes as well.
Yeah.
And this company in particular, when we did put it out the last time, their bid was significantly half or less than what other people were.
That scared
And so
us.
John, they invited them in. Are you sure? And they said, yeah, your books are in really good order.
Excellent.
It's not going to take us that much time. This is the right bid. So
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
I'd love to get it even lower, but this
So
is
if-
pretty good.
I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
If you have audit-related questions, John can answer those. Otherwise, we can move on to the monthly report.
Anyone have any audit-related questions?
Yeah, it was well laid out.
Anyone in the audience have any audit-related questions? Anyone read it?
It's really good reading
If you can't sleep.
if you can't sleep.
It's good.
Well, I have one thing to say, Kate, if I
Yeah.
could, on the audit.
Yeah.
Back in October, when we had closed the books and had unaudited results, I told you that we would end the year with a total fund balance of $4,157,845, of which $2,454,139 was unassigned. And of that $2,454,139, $704,754 is over the 10% guideline that we use. So there's $704,000 above the 10% that we have available to use as we see fit going forward.
And I would add, before you move on into the monthly, that's actually reflected in the budget that was proposed
Right.
to
Okay.
you on November 1st and the discussions that are ongoing around that budget.
So another 200,000, and we got a ladder truck, an area truck. Keep saving,
Yeah.
pack it away.
So, and the audit confirmed that number, so we're fine. There are no changes to any of the numbers as a result of the audit.
It's really good.
Okay, so let's take a look at November. So as of the end of November, we're 41.7% of the way through the year. General fund expenditures came in at 43.3% of the annual budget. And after doing our normal prorations we do every month, that would actually bring the expenditures down to 38.2%. So the general fund is doing well relative to where it would be expected to be this point in the year. The utilities fund expenditures were 46.1%. Parking was at 36.1%. And again, making prorations in the utility fund for insurance expense and interest expense, that would bring the expenditures down to 41.6% of the budget, so basically right on target. Solid waste, we had revenues at 40.4 and expenditures of 36.4. And again, these numbers don't reflect the November bag revenue curbside collection cost or tipping cost. And those will all be recorded in December. The loan report shows that we had $4,441,669 in outstanding loans. 4 loans had payments that were overdue, and 2 loans are in default and fully reserved. The program income report indicates that the town has $399,533 in available funds for additional grants and loans. And then finally, we have the grant report, which has a lot of information on all the grants that we have out there. It's 42 active grants and 12 grants that are in the application process. And so that really is my report, unless you've got some specific questions relative to any of the numbers or any of the reports.
Does anyone on the board have any questions? You look concerned, John.
No, I just wonder if we can ask anything about the loans that are in default.
Yeah, I wanted to ask that too.
Oh, okay. Well, I just don't know if that's,
Yeah,
can we ask about the,
I can tell you what they are.
yep.
So let's see.
and there's probably one that's not listed there.
Right.
One of them is cultural intrigue,
Oh, it's there, okay.
Okay, so it is.
$67,836.
Yep.
And the other has been in default for a long time.
Yeah.
That's Leslie Properties.
Right.
Yeah.
That one we've almost kind of
Right.
written off.
Yeah, that one we'll probably never see.
We'll
But
never
we've
see.
fully reserved both of these
Right.
loans. So cultural intrigue, we've recorded a reserve for that loan. And that's why the program income came down quite a bit
Right.
this
That's-
month. You'll see that.
Yeah, because it used to be like 400 and
Yeah.
something.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's
Yeah.
the reason that dropped.
And we're going to get, what money's going to come back into that? Does Commonwealth still owe us? Who still owes us back into
they
the
paid
program
the
income fund? Are they done?
Commonwealth is done.
Done.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not very much coming back. There's a few loans out there. We get maybe a couple thousand a month, I don't know, a few $1,000s a month coming in, but it's not a lot.
Right.
And it's getting down to the point where, we're having less flexibility in
Well, that's what I was
issuing
wondering.
additional
Yeah,
loans.
that's what I was wondering, like whenever you reach the point where,
Right. I think later in the budget process, we'll be dealing with a couple of different requests that are looking to draw on program income,
Yeah.
and we'll have a more complete conversation about the status of that,
Yeah.
the component pieces of the 399, because not even all of the 399 is available at this
no,
point to
because
expend.
some of that we've
Right.
earmarked, so it does
Yeah.
complicate
Yep,
the other discussion we are going to have.
sure.
Let's set it, just so everybody knows what we're talking about. Okay.
Okay.
Now, when do we do the parking fund, the budget for the parking?
We'll do that. We have until June to basically do
Oh, okay.
that.
Right.
So we can do that in the
Okay.
springtime.
It's usually May that we
Okay.
do the parking and the
Okay.
solid waste fund, and
Okay.
the utility fund is the big one at
Yeah.
that time.
Yeah, we do that right after town meeting.
I just couldn't remember. Okay.
Yep.
I won't be here tonight. That'll be good.
Parking. So does anyone,
You hear that?
I did hear that.
Okay, good.
the Johns are talking to each other. Does anyone on the board have any comments or questions about the
Thank you, sir.
finance report? Does anyone in the public have any questions about the finance report? Thank you, John, very much.
Thank you.
Next, we have to have a public hearing to close out the Vermont Community Development Program, Windham, Windsor Housing Trust Scattered Site Grant. So I want to call the public hearing to order. And Patrick, do you want to explain a little bit about what this is?
Sure. So there are two times in the life of a CDBG grant where a public hearing is to be held. And the first is when the town applies for it, and the last one is at closeout. We're now at closeout for the scattered site grant that the town sought and received back in 2013. Initially, the grant was for $1 million. And it was used by Windham and Windsor Housing Trust to provide a range of homeownership and counseling and loan program services across Windham and Windsor counties. That grant program was funded for 3 years and then was extended an additional year, this current year, 2017. The original grant was for $1 million. The fourth year, which was added to the project, was for an additional $320,000. Included in the board's packet was a memo from Erica Waltz of the Windham and Windsor Housing Trust, who described some of the activities that have been undertaken using these funds. And I'm not entirely sure if she's here with us tonight or not. Excellent, that's what I thought. But I didn't want to
put you on the
I wasn't
spot.
entirely sure.
Patrick, you look
Erica
good
Walsh
in
is
red.
here from Windham and Windsor Housing Trust, and she'd love to tell you all about the activities.
Would you like to tell us?
Sure. Do you have this same memo?
We do, yes.
we do.
So basically, the funds, thank you very much for the funds, were used to support our homeownership programs, which include the rehabilitation of single-family homes that are owned by people who are low to moderate income and would have difficulty getting a loan from a traditional lender. So we use this money to help them take out a loan to fund essential home repairs so that they can stay in their home. During the grant period, we had 100 applicants to the program. 10 of those applicants were from Brattleboro. And from those 100 applicants, we completed 67 projects, 8 in Brattleboro, the rest throughout Windham and Windsor County. And that, that as people pay back those loans, it revolves back into a fund that's used for future home repairs with the same guidelines. The other component was counseling and education, where we work with people who are interested in purchasing a home, typically for the first time, or people who need help building their financial capabilities, so financial literacy, budgeting, student loan repayment counseling, debt reduction. We work with those folks. And in the 3+ year process, we had 956 households. And so that's more than 956 people, because there are frequently more than one person in a household, who received counseling and education, and 171 of those people were from Brattleboro. Outcomes from those programs include debt reduction, down payment savings, and then going into home purchase, sometimes foreclosure prevention. And in the home purchase end, these are group classes, and then so group in-person classes, and also we have an online component for the education process where we help people who are going to purchase a home. And of the people who participated in home purchase, 179 of them purchased homes and became homeowners. 53 of those purchases were in Brattleboro. So that's what your money went to support. So thank you for the money.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for the work.
Yeah. It's wonderful. Thank you. Does anyone on the board have any comments or questions?
No, I just thought it interesting that there was a low percentage of people in the upper categories that were from Brattleboro, and I was wondering why that was. Or is it because this is Windham, Windsor County, right?
Yes.
This takes in quite a large area.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just shocked to see just a small percent. But then you get down to the people that bought homes, and 53 out of 179. So
Yeah.
that
And
did help.
it may be for the loan program. It's low to moderate income, and there isn't an income restriction for the home education and for certain home purchase products. For
Right.
the mortgages, there is an income restriction, but for the residential rehabilitation program, there absolutely is. And the folks that we work with tend to be unable to get funding elsewhere, and I think that the AMI in Brattleboro is higher,
Right.
and therefore it may be that people who live, Brattleboro residents, may be better able to access traditional forms of financing.
Were you guys happy with the outcome of the overall project?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we would like to do more of the home repair program, and so we have a new grant on the table that we're focusing a lot more on marketing that program, because I think that not enough people know about it, and we'd like to be able to help more of those folks.
Will that go through us again? That grant? Yep. Good, thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Anyone else on the board have any questions, comments? No. Does anyone in the public have any questions or comments? All right, thank you. Oh, yes, sir. Mr. Estes, come up.
In the evening. But 35 years ago, an organization like this helped me buy my first house, and thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. All right, thank you very much. I'm going to close the public hearing. There actually is no action required by the Select Board. So thank you very much. Next up is the Downtown Brattleboro Alliance. We're going to receive a presentation on their work plan and their budget. And I know there's a group of people.
We have 37
You can
people
bring as
here
many
from-
chairs up as you like. And what I'm going to do before we start, first I have to have a, what's not a disclaimer, whatever the word is. I'm on the Downtown Alliance board because my day job is with the Chamber of Commerce, and we have a seat on the board. So I want to.
Oh, we're all well aware of it,
I know, but I
Kate.
have to say it. I like to say it every time. I don't want anyone to get upset. And what I want to do too is, with my Select Board hat on, just give an overview of why they're here, because I think sometimes people get confused on why does the Downtown Alliance have to come to the Select Board. And people can stop me if I get it wrong. And there are actually going to be two things. This is the first of two discussions that we're going to have about the downtown. Tonight, we're hearing from the Downtown Alliance about their budget and work plan. The first meeting in January, I believe, we're going to be talking about the state's reapplication to be a designated downtown, which the town has to do every 5 years. So we're dividing these two subjects up. I'm going to try not to go on forever, but I'm going to give a nutshell. The reason the Downtown Alliance is here this evening is because the town of Brattleboro has what they're called designated downtown, and that is a status bestowed upon us by the state of Vermont. The town of Brattleboro applies to be called a designated downtown, which we have done, I think, back in 2015, or 15 years ago, I think was the first time we did it. So we've had this status for a while. With that honor of being the state letting you be a designated downtown comes tax credits, grants, you get a little bit of preference in Act 250 and things like that. There are, I think, about 25 designated downtowns in the town of Brattleboro, so we're in the state of Vermont. Brattleboro is one of those. The reason we have the Downtown Alliance here is because when you're a designated downtown, you can have an organization that is the person or the group that oversees the downtown status. The town of Brattleboro gets to pick who that is, and they have chosen the Downtown Brattleboro Alliance to be our group that organizes it. The funding comes through the town. With the status, the state of Vermont allows us to, I don't like to say impose, assess an additional tax, I don't like to say that either, on property taxpayers in downtown. So that's the route the town of Brattleboro has chosen to take to fund the downtown organization. So that's why we are basically here. They are here tonight to talk to us about what their plans are for the next year. And there is a town ordinance which outlines how the downtown group goes about getting that money. And they have to go through certain things which they'll explain that they have done, which is hold a meeting, talk to their members. Then the work plan and budget comes here. The select board has to approve it and put it on the town meeting warning, where the town meeting as a whole has to approve it. The ordinance allows the select board to say, we're not ready, or we don't want to, we need more info, we need more info. I'm not saying that's going to be the case, but I'm just telling you what the language is. So that's why they're here tonight, because the town does play a role in this. It's the town that asks the state for the designation. It's the town that designates who the organization is to oversee the downtown. And it's the town that assesses and collects the money that we will give to whoever the downtown group is. It's not property taxpayer dollars, it's a special assessment. So does that make sense to everybody? I know some people on the board are new, and I just wanted to go through that. Does that make sense?
Could you go over it again?
Yeah, John. So tonight, we're hearing from the downtown group. January 2nd, we're going to be talking about the 5-year extension. We figured divide it up so we're not all here for an inordinate amount of time. So with that confusing explanation, I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie and Ted, who will introduce themselves and tell us what the plans are. Thank you.
I thought that was a superb explanation.
Was it?
By the way. Yes.
I started my morning at a meeting at 7, so I'm not thinking.
Well, I'm Ted Kramer. I'm one of the members of the Board of Directors of the DBA and presently serve as Vice President of the DBA. Michelle Simpson-Siegel is our President and Stephanie is our Executive Director. And I think Stephanie may take a few moments to sort of explain to you what we've been up to and what our plans are.
So this is the first time that I'm coming to you in my new official capacity as Executive Director. And I have talked to some of you on the street or in person about my excitement for the position, but I do want to reiterate that again, that I am really confident and excited that DBA has chosen to go back to an Executive Director position. So for the past 4 years, we've been in a coordinator position, which for me is, there's more than just the difference in time and part-time and full-time. There's also a difference in skill level and expectation. So a coordinator was working more to assist the board, and an executive director is working more to guide and lead the organization into both the work plan and also the bigger vision. So I'm excited about that. I also continue to be, I was on the board for 3.5 years and continue to be really inspired by what Kate just described as the role of DBA. And I see it as such a gift that the bigger picture is that the property owners, the businesses, the merchants, the organizations, and the residents all in downtown are seeing the importance of pooling together not only their efforts, but also their money, their resources. And that to me is can be a really powerful outcome. So one thing I just wanted to add to Kate's description is the board is an all-volunteer board, and then I am the only staff person right now, a paid staff person, and that we are part of the National Main Streets organization. So we have 4 committees, and those committees are the Economic Development Committee, Promotions, Design, and Organizational. Besides just the FY19 budget, I also was under the impression and would love to talk about, give you an update of our accomplishments from the previous year, give you a quick update of where we're at in this current year, and then talk about the work plan and budget, so covering 3 fiscal years. Our mission statement is to support and nurture the economic, cultural, residential, and educational environment of the town of Brattleboro with the primary emphasis on downtown. So looking at this past year, which our year finishes the end of June. So looking at this past year, I wanted to highlight, and you're all looking at the year in review that we came up with, but I wanted to highlight a couple things from each committee. So in the Promotions Committee, we had a new event this year, which was called the Golden Ticket. And when we look at anything we do in the DBA, we're looking at who our target audience. And we have 3 target audiences. They're local, within a 50-mile radius, and the drive market, the destination. Boston, New York, Montreal, Burlington, Hartford. And so whenever we're looking at a new event or even old events, we remind ourselves, who are we targeting? So in this particular campaign, we were targeting locals. And our idea was we wanted to come up with a campaign during the down period, mud season, to bring people into the town. We also have, for several years, wanted to figure out something around the parking issue. Everybody, whether it's you all as the town, residences, or business community, it's a hot issue, meaning people like to talk about it, they key in when they hear it, and they also want to find solutions to it. So we wanted to take advantage of that buzz and do a campaign around it. So that's where the golden ticket came from. We collaborated with the town, with Tavernier chocolates and all the businesses to come up with the Brattle Bar. 1,000 Brattle Bars were made, and in that 1,000, 3 of them contained the golden ticket, which was worth 1 year of free parking. So since the prize was free parking, that gave us free range to talk about parking. And so in the different paraphernalia that we did, we talked about, we had 3 kind of spiels that we talked about of what are parking options in Brattleboro to educate the people. So this campaign was like a marketer's dream. It took off. Yes, it hit the local market, but we also hit international, and we hit all of the United States. We were mentioned on the opening remarks of Conan O'Brien. We were in Inside Edition. Boston NBC station came up and interviewed us. So it was unbelievably hot and a phenomenal ride to be on. The co-op sold 333, I think, tickets in the first 3 days. Chocolate bars in the first 3 days. And the other coalition partner that we had that had tons of fun with it was Brattleboro Reformer. So we really tried to emulate Charlie and the Chocolate Factory with that campaign and run the golden ticket winners on the front page. The last thing I'll highlight about it was the feel-good aspect of it, and community building was beautiful. One of the things was a lot of business owners were buying their employees and sending me little videos of their employees unwrapping the chocolate bars in hopes that they would win. But then there was also this email that I highlighted in the year in review I gave you, and this was written to the owners of Tavernier Chocolate. And the email says, "I love the story about the Brattleboro Golden Ticket chocolate bars. I would love to buy some to have shipped to me in Delaware. Should I be lucky enough to purchase one of the golden tickets, I would donate it back for use by a family struggling financially. The free parking would be a huge help to them, and maybe they don't have money to purchase the bars. I guess kind of like Charlie. I would appreciate your help and look forward to tasting your chocolate. Thank you, Kathy." So, huge success, heartwarming campaign. The other one I'd highlight in promotions that we did, which was new this year, was the Buy Local book. And our target here was locals and also the drive market, because it's a statewide thing. And so we would be able to hit Burlington, Montpelier, and such. So this is something that we worked with VBSR, Vermont Businesses for Social Responsibility. And one of the things we loved about it is working in coalition with people who already have the infrastructure and the campaign. We get to spend our DBA dollars and have them magnified and amplified that much more, because we don't have to invent the entire structure. So VBSR does a Buy Local coupon book, and this year also app. And they've been doing it for years, but Brattleboro has never had a huge presence. The previous year, there were 4 coupons in it from Brattleboro, and so it's very hard to justify buying a $20 coupon book, or even the school selling it when you have that low of a presence. So we took over the signing up of businesses for this book, which means that it's peer-to-peer. So as peers, we're going out and saying, what if we all came together and did this together? That's a lot more powerful than a salesperson walking in and saying, do you want to be part of a coupon book? So we were able to sign 33 businesses up, and we also were able to subsidize the coupon so that the risk is a lot lower for the businesses. So come with us, we're all going to do this together, and it's a low bar. Let's give it a shot this year and see if it works. The way that VBSR distributes is through the schools. So they get schools to adopt these books and sell them at a profit, and then they're able to fundraise. So again, DBA doesn't have to take the responsibility of selling it. So I see that as an enormous success to go from 4 businesses to 33 businesses, or maybe 34 businesses, and has been a lot of fun to talk to other business owners and see if they're redeeming it and use an application, a phone app in the Brattleboro setting, and see how that works as well. We did our other events that we've been doing for a little bit now, Brattleboro, Brat Love Crawl, Restaurant Week, and so on. There are other things, and I would be happy to highlight them, but you can also read them. So in the design committee, we continued the successful program of flowers and lighting in downtown Brattleboro, holiday lighting. There's also a list of other incredible things done by our design committee. One thing that I wanted to highlight was the facade program, which continues to be a success, and that is doing matching grants for new signs or awnings. One of my favorite ones that we've helped with is Beadniks, which has a gorgeous sign, if you all have noticed it, and the lights coming through at night are beautiful. So we disseminated $1,360 to downtown merchants in that matching facade grant program. In the Economic Development Committee, we awarded $2,863 in matching grants. This is the second year, so I'm talking about last year, is the second year that we've done this matching grants program. And I think the power of that is they're very small. And so it's easy for organizations or programs that are trying to get small amounts of money that aren't big themselves to fall through the granting process cracks. And so that's where we can come in and support them. The organizational committee, we started a 5-year strategic plan and worked on a long-term success and sustainability, and that's really where the executive director position came out of. So saying that we need more staff time and more of a leadership position to be able to take DBA to the next level. And out of that committee, we also, and the board, voted to raise the personnel line item. So that's what propelled us into this current fiscal year. Lastly, looking at how we've improved over the years. So I could give you a figure such as we grew our Facebook followers to 4,060, which doesn't mean that much until you look at what we were previously, which was 2,800. So we almost doubled our Facebook followers. We almost doubled the amount of people that are checking in on Facebook. So all of that is incremental and monumental growth year to year as we're getting better and bigger. On social media, it's so easy to grow exponentially, and that's what we're seeing. So that's our previous year in a nutshell. Looking at this current year that we're in right now, we're halfway through, and I am very clear of my marching orders that being halfway through, we need to make sure that we're able to implement the current work plan. So I'm on it. We have had a lot going on already. I want to recognize that we also have a huge call for transparency and communication within our organization. And that is probably one of the things that I'm striving to accomplish and show can be done in a really short period of time. So this highlight is a very wonky highlight, but I think that it shows that we're making huge inroads quickly. And that is Google Docs. So a lot of the call from the membership is, I want to be able to see your budget, or I want to be able to see the work plan. And so I created a Google Doc file. A lot of that is teaching people how to use Google Docs. But once we get that mastered, they can go to the link, and at any point they can see our current P&L. They can see our current balance sheet. They can see our current work plan. And that is no small feat, because if you have, like we have, which is 127 members, and that doesn't even include all the people who don't pay membership dues, asking me for the budget. You can see how my time is spent trying to be transparent. So Google Docs is going to be my best friend, and I'm going to really be able to quickly expedite people needing stuff. Okay, so besides that, currently we have done our Brattleboro promotion, and we're in the middle of our holiday promotion. a small holiday promotion this year because of all the staff changes and transition in the organization, but we have for the third year in a row done extended holiday hours where we make sure that the majority of the merchants are banded together, staying open the last 4 days before Christmas until 7. What we have added this year is extremely exciting, and with the work of our newest board member, Erin Skaggs from Elliott Street Fish and Chips, Kids Place, and DBA, we have created Playdate, which we hope this is a pilot run and we hope it will continue. And so the idea is extended hours until 7 o'clock. Let's figure out how we can target our audience being locals. How can we target them? And so on Thursday at 4 different locations around the town, Kids Place, Boys and Girls Club, River Gallery Art School, and BCC, Brattleboro Child Center for Children. So those 4 locations will be hosting kids. Parents can drop them off for a donation, and they will then go into town and take a moment by themselves to be adults or to go holiday shopping or to dine out. And right now we have 30 of the 40 slots already taken, and this is our first go at it. The other thing that we are doing is already working in coalition with a new person, United Way, a new coalition partner for ourselves, United Way, and hopefully expand this even more on welcome packets to town. So again, we don't all have to be doing the same things. We don't all duplicate, but how can we all come together and work on projects that we all want to do that will fulfill our mission? And United Way sends out about 400 mailings a quarter for new residents. And so we're excited to work with them on that as well. I wanted to give you a little bit of an update on numbers. We're 6 months into our work plan right now. We have increased our membership by 24%. And really the reason why is because we now have staff time to do an actual membership drive. So that was really exciting. Our social media is growing exponentially, and if you look at those numbers that I gave you from the previous year, oh no, I don't want to do that. I'm sorry, that's not this current year. That's last year. So current year, to give you 2 examples, I just posted a beautiful picture that was taken by a Brattleboro resident, Erica, and it was of Pliny Park, and we had 12,577 views. A normal view for us, a good solid post for us, is about 11,000. Wait, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. 1,100. This picture, this beautiful picture, got 12,577 views, 408 likes, and the golden of all social media, 135 shares. So our reach is just, again, growing exponentially. The design committee, summer, fall, and winter flowers have been amazing and up. Holiday lights are up. Ruggles and Hunt was awarded with a facade grant for their new awning, and then that same building that Ruggles and Hunt is in was awarded a economic and facade grant for looking at safety of that alleyway and lighting that alleyway for safety. Economic Development Committee has been formed, and I'm excited that for the first time we have a past grantee on the Economic Development Board looking at the new grants so they can have their perspective on the table. And then organizational, one other new hire, we switched bookkeepers, so we also have a new bookkeeper as new staff member. So that's where we're at right now. And then looking into the future for our next fiscal year, 19, we have created a work plan and budget. We have we have had extensive one-on-one meetings with people throughout the community, property owners, residents, nonprofits, organizations, people outside such as Landmark College, saying how do we talk to your population and get them to Brattleboro. And all of that went into our 5-year strategy plan. All of that insight that we gained went into our 5-year strategy plan and also our 1-year work plan. We then took it to the board. We then took it to the members. We had a public input meeting where they gave us input on that. We then went back, did some adjustments, then went back to them for a vote. It passed 27?
Something like
27 to 4. And then we are bringing it to you. So I wanted to just highlight a couple things, and that is that it is level funded for the $78,000.
That's the one thing, Stephanie, I want to talk to you about. On your, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just want you to look at the DBA budget detail.
75.
You've put 75, so I wanted to confirm you guys want 78,
Now, what is
right?
going on with that number that's haunting me?
I know.
Yes, correct, it's 28,000.
You want 78.
78,000.
Okay. I didn't want to, I was going to ask you about a highlight. I just want to make sure.
That's bringing it back up to the previous assessment.
That's right. It was 75 last
Yeah.
year, and it's 78.
Where is
So
it?
you want 78 this year.
Yes, okay, thank you, Kate, yes. On the detail she's talking about, the overall budget that I sent was correct at 78,000.
Yeah.
Okay, so level funded.
You don't want it level funded, you want it increased to
right.
78.
You're right, I'm sorry. Right, because of the 1 year was 75.
Yes.
So all of
We just wanna
the
say the same
committee
thing.
work is staying the same. And then in the budget, you will see the line of $35,155, and that's the organizational spending via privately raised funds. And that's what allows us to continue to do the program work that we've been doing and that we want to continue to do. You guys are looking.
Hey, Stephanie?
Yes?
We have
37,630.
Yeah.
Are you looking at the detail?
Yeah.
Do you not want us
Let
to?
me go to the detail.
Okay.
Well, yeah, this,
At least that's
we
what
want
I
to make sure we
It's
have
okay, you
it
can
what
tell us
you
what to
want.
look at.
115. Okay.
So it-
private fund, right?
Yeah, but we're going off of. Wait, so this is the difference. So both are the correct ending numbers,
I just want to make sure.
but the spending via privately raised funds is 35. I think I might need a calculator.
Because if it's 78,
37.
37,
You know what?
it's 115.
Yeah,
That's what
it's.
I'm wondering if this is the figure.
See how? Oh, this is.
Because that's what promotions and all. So those are the $1,600.
This should be. I'm.
And that was what net.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sorry for the discrepancy. I believe that it's the 37,630 number that's correct, and you'll see that in the right pullout of the colorful DBA budget, and then you'll also see that in the detailed budget.
Yeah. 'Cause we don't have the colorful. We have this one.
You don't have the colorful? I think you do, and then you asked me for more detail?
Well, this is the one that's in our
Oh,
book.
okay.
So,
Okay, got it.
so it's perfect. So
Great.
it's 78, and it is the 37,630.
Although, do you have a calculator on you? Because
Perfect.
if this number, is that number?
Okay. I think we're on the same page.
I actually, 5, 6, 7, 75, 6.
How's that back doing, Ted?
I think if you do the math,
It's 30.
I think it's a typo, just to correct you. If it says 78, you do the math, this comes up to the 15,000.
The 115?
Yeah. If it's 78
Yeah.
and the 37 is 115.
It's a typo.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, but I think Stephanie's looking at the 37 or 35. We're looking at a different number.
37,630. Yeah,
37, you get your 150.
yeah, so 37,630 is correct.
Perfect. Good.
Yeah, so I did my math right, but the wrong, yes,
Okay.
but last year's number. Okay, great.
Perfect.
Okay, so, yeah, I think that's in a summary, so just to reiterate what I was finishing saying was that the difference in this current budget that I'm bringing to you is the privately funded line item that we just discussed at $37,630.
Do you want to walk through with us the different categories of spending?
I can.
Because, yeah.
In the detail, I can. So this is reflective of our previous many years. Our budget has remained very similar looking. And so it breaks down into the 4 categories: promotions. And under promotions, we broke it down a little further: digital marketing, print marketing, radio marketing, parking promotions. The next committee is design, and that's broken down into flowers, holiday lights, facade improvement. The next committee is economic development, and that's the matching grant program. The last committee is organizational, and that's all the stuff that people love funding: copying, printing, postage, and staff time, supplies.
Does anyone on the board have any questions?
I had a couple of detailed questions about the FY19. Isn't the digital marketing digital marketing portion of the promotions, is that going down substantially? It seems to be, right? I made a note to myself a couple days ago that it was over 4,000 the previous year, and it's going down to 2,850.
No, level funded.
Really?
5, 6, 7. The previous year, it went down a little bit. It went from social media ads went from 1,000 to 810. So we decreased it by.
Are you looking at the?
I'm not sure where I got the over 4,000 number. I'm sorry.
You're looking at the July 2016 through June 2007 budget, and it was that's where he's getting it.
Which fiscal year?
2017 fiscal year.
Okay, so
it went from 4,000. It was 4,000, and we're getting ourselves all confused. July 2016 through June 2017, which is the FY 2017 budget.
Yeah.
Page 3, it's 7440. Is line 7040? Is that what you're looking at, Tim?
Yeah.
Yeah. It says 4,000. That's what I think Tim's referring to. That's overall digital presence. Do you see what I'm looking at, Stephanie?
I do see where you're looking at. So that was the previous fiscal year. So that was last year. I think that it.
So that's not the year we're in. That's the year that just ended.
I understand. I think
Yes, and I actually think that those funds have a lot to do with the redo of the website.
Oh, I
and
see.
so the next year we came down in our needs, and so we brought the budget down.
Well, I was just wondering on the two coming down, the two declining areas. I was noticing the economic development that you, in your report from this past year, you said you awarded 6360, but you only have 1,000 slotted for this fiscal year coming up.
Yes.
Is there a reason why that's declining rather than?
Yeah, so a lot of our rationale is if you have staff time to be able to implement programs and do work, that can offset some of the programs that we had to either pay for or that our only choice was to do a granting program. So economic development can be seen as my work on the Hinsdale Bridge. That's not a program that needs money, but it is a program that needs staffing and time. Or it could be seen as economic development is such a broad category that we looked at, we did some changes in program work versus staffing time. And that was one of them.
Those were my only questions on the budget detail.
Do you guys have a figure on what was raised last year for private fundraising?
Yes.
I mean, I think I have it, but I'm not sure.
So fiscal year 17, the income that we took in from the membership dues was $450. The other income that we took in was from the Brat Love Crawl. Those were the two income generators.
Okay.
I bet I know your next question.
What's my next question? Your next.
Go ahead.
No.
And I think he's wondering how you're going to.
And I'm wondering how you plan on raising $37,630 this year. If last year you only raised $6,000?
So the difference is that it wasn't even 6,000. The difference was we had no intention of raising money. And this year we have an intention of raising, or this next current year, we have an intention of raising money.
See, here's my problem with it. I wasn't going to speak too quickly because I want to hear from other people. But every year we go through this, and every year I get more confused with budgets, with how it's operated, with why we have it. I've been on the board or been associated with the board since about 2007, 2008, and Dick can attest to this. I've always questioned it. Every year I question it, and I've questioned it this year. I've asked why do we need a downtown improvement district when you hear a lot of the controversy around, some of the owners don't want it, some of them do. What do we get for our money? What do we? And it's just always confusing to me. The budgets are always confusing. We've gone from executive directors to no executive directors to, it just seems constantly in flux. And I think I've raised this every year that I've been on the board. I don't understand it. So I'm trying to understand it, and it is by no means anything personal. It's just, I don't get it. And so I'm hoping to hear more and to make me get it. But right now, again, I don't see how you're going to raise $37,000, and what you're asking for an executive director and a coordinator. We have some staff. We have some department heads that don't make that. So it's. I just have a hard time processing the whole thing. So I'm hoping to be enlightened by it, but every year I'm never enlightened. I always walk away going, I still don't get it. So those are my questions.
I think that means the DBA has not done a good job at saying who is doing the great work. I don't think it's that we don't do great work. And so I don't think we're very good at waving our own flag. Our downtown is amazing, and it is not one that you can find in many other places. A lot of downtowns are saying, how on earth can we keep this community space vibrant if retail is dying? We have the gift of having this great downtown, but it's not one that we can look away from for very long at all, or I would argue even a second. We need to figure out how we keep our community as strong as it is in Main Street. And when I say Main Street, I mean high, flat, Elliott Street. And so what does the DBA do along with other organizations in town, like the town, like the Chamber, like United Way, like so many organizations? We all work as hard as we can to be able to make sure that our community is surviving. And when I say community, I mean the downtown stores. So when I talk about the Golden Touch, I'm talking about the people, just getting them to go in those stores to buy a chocolate bar in hopes that they will look and go, oh, I've never been in this store and this is really neat. Or if they go on the Brat Love Crawl, they go in because they thought it seemed like a fun activity, but then again, they're like, outrageous? Oh, I didn't know this existed. It's in my mind now the next time. Or when we talk about doing bike racks downtown, which is in the 5-year strategy plan, we're talking about making sure that we're branding Brattleboro as the image that we all feel that we are, but does the outside world see that? And then ultimately, does that translate into a vivacious, vibrant downtown? Every single work we do is trying to make sure that the vibrancy is magnified and elevated that we already have and increasing it. But I think we can do a lot better job at saying that that's us that's doing that. Just a sec.
And also, just a little bit of historical backdrop. And I know, I recollect over the years, John, that you have been somewhat skeptical or not necessarily convinced that the downtown board is accomplishing as much as it should. My sense of things is that I remember when a number of merchants downtown were so concerned about the deterioration downtown that they actually created Building a Better Brattleboro even before the state of Vermont created the downtown improvement districts. We actually predated the downtown improvement districts. And thank God Vermont, in my estimation, is one of the leading states in the country in embracing our downtowns, valuing our downtowns, and even though downtowns are deteriorating and dilapidating all across the country, I think we have a beautiful downtown here in Brattleboro. So when we started a number of years ago, Donna Simons and Greg Warden and Pal Borofsky and Steve Baker may recollect better than I, but I know there were at least a couple of dozen vacancies in the storefronts downtown, and there was a great deal of concern. And BABB was created. We had this mechanism from the state of Vermont to fund us. So we took the old Rite Aid building on Main Street and turned that into the River Garden. We rejuvenated the Plenty Park from a downtown Dunkin' Donuts to a beautiful park. We have had the flower program that Dick DeGray has carried for so many years. We have the lighting program downtown that has beautified our downtown during the holidays. We have the storefront improvement program that allows the storefronts to invest capital in improving the presentation of the downtown. So from my point of view, from my perspective, we have had a volunteer board over the years of very well-intended individuals who have done their best during their volunteer time to hear an incredible disparate view of opinions. You should do this on Main Street, you should do that on Elliott Street, you need to do more of this, you need to do less of that. We had a board of volunteers over the last year that was, I think, beginning to get a little tired. And I would say as a member of the board for the last few years, depending on any particular given time, we have had 6 to 10 board members. The lion's share of the work has been done by Dick DeGray, by Stephanie, and by Michelle Simpson-Siegel. So there were 3 people who were doing a remarkable amount of work, and I am very grateful to them for what they've done. So finally, as a board, we were convinced that we need to devote the hours, we need to devote the manpower to fund an executive director position. We have incredible good fortune that we have Stephanie volunteering to assume that position. She's extremely devoted to the town. She's extremely enthusiastic. And her designation as our executive director has created a lot of enthusiasm downtown, and part of our budgetary decision was to trigger and make contingent the hiring on this fundraising. So we have had a number of individuals in the community indicate to us that a significant amount of private fundraising will be coming forward, particularly in light of the fact that we have Stephanie as our executive director. It sort of went hand in hand. That particular appointment by the board has, in my view, been extremely popular. There was some upset amongst some of the members that the executive director search wasn't publicized better than it was. I think there is a general consensus that the process may not have been ideal, but the selection has been very well received, namely Stephanie. So we are regrouping now with an executive director who has enthusiasm and the time to implement the programs that we want to implement. I know, John, that you have been, I think, unconvinced necessarily that it's money well spent. I think we have a beautiful downtown.
Oh, I'm not doubting that we do.
Some of the suggestions we get are popular with the board. Some of the suggestions are just beyond our capabilities, so it's hard to please everyone. But I hope that gives you some sense of sort of the historical backdrop of DBA, which was BABB, which even predated the downtown. And I am so thankful that we have a core group of volunteers in this town, like the Larry Cassidys, the Donna Simons, the Greg Wardens, the Pal Borofskis, the Steve Bakers, year in and year out. They do their best and serve on these volunteer boards to try to make the downtown as beautiful and as inviting as we can. And I can just tell you, as a board member for the last couple of years, I'm very grateful to everything that Stephanie has done during her own time, which has been tireless. And now, if we can get the approval of the select board and town meeting, I think you will find a remarkable increase in transparency, communication, and presence on the street in the form of Stephanie Bonin. But we are going to do fundraising, and we are mindful that we have a significant fundraising goal because we want to fund the executive director position above and beyond the traditional $78,000 contribution that we get from the town. So this one's sort of on us, and we're not asking the town to cover that additional labor. In a sense, we're going to go out and fundraise that. And you have every right to wonder if we're going to be able to pull that off. And time will tell.
It's like, I'm not saying that I've heard that speech before, but I've heard that speech before. Where, we're ready to go this year, and I agree. We have a great downtown. Is it all through the DBA? Is it through the chamber? Is it through, just people really concerned about downtown? I don't know. So again, it's just every year I hear the same thing that, okay, we're going to try something new, and we're going to be better at it, and every year around this time I start hearing things from merchants and store owners downtown that I don't get it, and so that's just my only concern.
Well, the other
that
thing
I've heard before.
The other thing I would say is, if there are some merchants who would like to volunteer to be on our board, we'd be delighted to have their enthusiasm. We'd be delighted to have their perspective. The more, the merrier.
I just want to give the select board just a couple things to ask questions.
These guys are jumping out of their skin back
David
here.
has a question. We're gonna let everybody talk. I just want David to be able to ask us.
It's not a question, it's an observation. I don't talk to a lot of the merchants. I shop in a lot of the stores, but I don't talk to the merchants much. But so based on what I've seen in the 5 or so years that you come and do presentations and tell us what's going on, what I've seen is a pretty constant increase, and you document it year to year in the effectiveness of the work that you're doing. I see an increase in the partnerships, the different organizations. You mentioned United Way now is another new one. I see a more coherent structure each time. There are changes, but if an organization is not changing, it's not paying attention. And it seems to me the experiences you're learning from you're being more successful in achieving those goals. So, and again, just the objective view of what the downtown looks like compared to anywhere else you go in the state almost maybe Church Street in Burlington, but there are a lot of issues on Church Street in Burlington these days, just like there are in our downtown. But I don't think there's any place else that's like it. You'd have to go to Portsmouth to see as vibrant a downtown, and and they're on the ocean. So I see constant growth and constant improvement, and the town just looks better, and people are happy with it all the time. Can't fix the parking, and that's not your job.
We'll go to the public, and then I think we have a couple more questions on the board. But Larry, if you got to come up here and speak at the mic, or TV land can't hear you.
Well, I have to say I'm a little surprised about the scrutiny for money that the downtown puts together and spends. When we started this thing, there's only 3 people in this room that remember there were 27 vacant stores, downtown rentals, street level, when we started BABB. We started it for the simple reason that everyone cared about the town. We were fighting against Home Depot and Walmart. And every year, we'd have an executive director. It wasn't a very well-run organization, not like it is now. It was sloppy. It was very sloppy. But everyone was a cheerleader. We brought the town back. We weren't fighting about process or anything, because it's sloppy. They're volunteers. We raised over $2 million. We did all these things that took place in Brattleboro that you would never have believed. So I don't quite understand the scrutiny here. I mean, aren't we all in the same town? I mean, there's volunteers. Volunteers don't do everything the way they're supposed to do. They might get we've had a $70,000, $80,000 budget for 15 years. There's never once has there been an issue where there's been malpractice or anything else. We get it sorted out. I mean, what are we talking about here? We're talking about our town. I mean, we're talking about our town, that money we raise. It's not money that you guys are putting in. We got together and did the tax thing. Let's get together. Let's be a cheerleader of the town. Let's bring this organization together. We're fighting bigger foes now. We got Amazon.com. We got Google. We got some serious stuff going on. You don't realize how vulnerable downtown is. You can't go through up and down Main Street and find any balance sheet that's in the black right now. So things are serious. And yeah, we're regrouping again because we're seeing the same kind of things we saw 15 years ago. So let's get together. Let's not worry about nickels and dimes or whether Stephanie can raise 10,000 or 30. Who cares? We'll do the best we can.
Thank you. Did Craig want to say something?
Oh, yes.
Well, could you we know who you are, but can you tell the world who
That was actually the first bullet point. Who am I? I'm a few different people. I'm one of the investors in the Brooks House. You may know it. It's the 86,000 square foot mixed-use commercial building in downtown Brattleboro. I'm a director at Downs Rockwell Martin. You may know it. It's a law firm in the Marlborough College building, part of the downtown district. I'm also a partner in M&S Development, which is a partnership between me and Bob Stevens, my business partner, and we do really commercial redevelopment in downtowns throughout New England.
And you know the benefits of being a property owner downtown because you got some good tax credits,
I got amazing tax credits. Let me just, and that's a great segue. First, let me say, if there's somebody more invested in the success of downtown Brattleboro, please point them out, because I owe $24 million on that building. I'm a partner in a law firm, and I'm a developer who does redevelopment of downtowns. So I know of what I speak. So let me say that who Stephanie Bonin is. It is no exaggeration to say that the Brooks House would not have been redeveloped without the commitment of Stephanie and Keith. They were incredible supporters. They were key tenants. And that's what we needed to get that project done. And they stood up and they made a commitment. They made a commitment of time. They made a commitment of money. They moved across the country. So if we could all just take a step back and remember that Stephanie and her family are really key elements in the redevelopment of our downtown, and keep that in mind as we make comments. I'd appreciate it. Who's DBA? I just want to point out, DBA, 27-4 chose to approve this budget. I pay for this budget. I'm pretty sure the Brooks House and Downs Rockland Martin and M&S Development and Stevens and Associates, my partner Bob Stevens and the property he owns, we pay a fair percentage of this budget. And I do it gladly and blissfully. And I am ecstatic at the work that Stephanie and DBA are going to do this year. And in fact, not only do I think they do a great job, I'm on the hook as DRM and Brooks House and M&S Development for $3,000 at least of the $37,000 of the private development. So it is the downtown owners and merchants who have said, this is the budget we want. This is the executive director that we want. This is the direction of this organization that we want. And I'm not sure I understand the criticism from this board regarding the decisions that we, the downtown owners and merchants, have made regarding the future of our downtown. Thank you.
I just want to say something, and I vowed I wasn't going to. I don't think anybody here is criticizing. I haven't heard us criticizing. I think we're just asking questions because, as I explained in the beginning, the town is accountable to the state. And as a select board, we're the ones that have to put something on the town meeting warning. So I think we want to do our due diligence, and I've explained this to other people. That's what we're doing, because there's an ordinance that says this is how it works. So, and I haven't heard anybody say anything negative about Stephanie as a person. And if they did,
there were some comments from the board regarding whether this was an appropriate amount of money to pay for an executive director.
Oh, okay. I don't think
that was a comment from the board, and I will say that this is a woefully underfunded amount of money to pay for this level of talent.
I just want to make it really clear that none of us are being. If Stephanie, if you feel anything has been said is personal, I don't think we've said that. So I just want to go on the record of saying that. And the reason that we're here is because there is a town ordinance that leads us to be here today, because we have to put something on the town meeting warning. That's why this is happening. Because I can tell you, if we didn't have to be involved in something, none of us would willingly be involved in things we don't have to be. But we have the responsibility because it's an ordinance, and town is accountable to the state. The DBA board is accountable to the town is accountable to the state. So this is why I'm hoping everybody understands why we're here.
I think that I should have said that one of my goals would be that the next time I visit you, which is by the ordinance in 6 months, that you would all be so aware of the work that we do that the first thing we would all say is, oh, wasn't that a great year? Now, let's get down to looking at the budget. And I think that that's on DBA to just constantly be flooding. Maybe my goal is for you to say, oh, okay, Stephanie, that's not, you're keeping us too abreast of what's going on. And that would be deemed as a success. Because it does. I think what everyone would like is this to feel really good. Like, yes, great campaigns, great work.
I just also want to say that I think the strong reaction to the amount that an executive director, and I don't think any of us are considering, are calling into question Stephanie's qualifications here. But when we look at these numbers, we're looking at the DID assessment versus the salary, and that's shocking because right now the other pot of money doesn't exist. So
the overhead for the organization is $78,000, and the DID ask is $78,000. I think that's what's causing some concern.
So there's a leap of faith that has to happen.
Yes.
And I don't think I am unwilling to make that leap of faith, but we should be asking questions. That's our job.
Yeah. If we didn't have to be, we wouldn't be. But again, there's an accountability issue, and we are ultimately accountable to the state.
Again, if I hurt anybody's feelings, I'm sorry, but I have to ask the questions because I've been asked the questions by people around. And so That's the only reason I brought it up, and the only reason I bring it up because every year we go through this, and I've been here for 8 years.
And the only thing I'll say, Mr. Allen, is 27-4.
That's
this
fine.
overwhelmingly was adopted by the people who are going to pay this tax. So if folks are coming up to you, and just remind yourself that they are part of the 4, not part of the 27. Thank you, Prim. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Estee.
Thank you. I don't know a lot about this organization, but I was impressed by what I heard. What I can tell you is in West Dover, they have a 1% tax. That's, I think it's levied on all businesses. It raises something like less than $300,000. They hired an economic development director recently, if you were aware. That sounds like exactly what this young lady does. And they are paying this fellow $82,000 a year.
Cover your ears, Stephanie.
We're all
There's some comparison for you. There's a budget. He has a budget of under about $300,000, and he himself gets $82,000. I don't know what this organization would cost you $75,000. There's a comparison for you. For the town of that size, this does not have $1 billion budget, if that's what I understood you saying, Mr. Elwell. I think their budget is in a couple of millions of dollars.
No, that's what our grand list is.
Our grand list, yeah.
Grand
We wish we had a billion. We wish we had a
budget.
Well, I suspect that
17.
So we got West Dover has a couple of $1 million budget.
Yeah, thank you. Donna?
I think the job that all of us do is to be commended. I think that there has been a great deal of soul searching on behalf of the organization. But John, I specifically would like to ask you if you have ever gone to the National Main Street Organization's website and educated yourself about what the national organization has done?
No.
Okay, have you ever attended a meeting that the Vermont Downtown Association has held?
No.
Okay. So my point is you talked about you ask the same questions every 8 years, and I think that I was a representative of this organization maybe 8 or however many years ago, and I recommended that you do that because every year you say you don't understand. And if you really understood how downtowns work, how national downtowns work, how Vermont downtowns work, you wouldn't be asking these questions. And I know that you kind of are a volunteer organization. I don't believe your select board members are getting deep-pocketed money from the town. So I do appreciate that you give all of your time and effort to the town. But I have to recommend before you start saying you don't understand to at least take the time to educate yourself about what it takes to operate and sustain downtowns. And I agree with what Larry said. They are under attack more so now than ever before. Brick and mortar is crumbling nationally. We have one of the gems of the country. Not just Vermont. I mean, I've traveled to every downtown in this state. Brattleboro is really towards the top. And that would be the other question is how often do you get out? How often have you been to St. Johnsbury or Rutland or Bennington, Bellows Falls? When you see them, you begin to appreciate what we have in downtown. And I would say the constant thing that I have always stressed from the time I don't even know. We were trying to figure it out. Was it 2000 when we started the downtown organization when there were 27 vacant stores? Is that we have to work together. And in all the years that I've been in downtown Brattleboro, which is 44, I have a store on Main Street. It turned 44 in November. There is only one little window that I feel like town government and the downtown people and the merchants all cooperated together to build something, and it was when there were 27 vacancies. Since that time, I think that, we've put that to bed and we don't have to think about it anymore, but I think it's constant. And if you really knew about downtown management, you would understand that it's constant, it's thankless, there is constant turnover in executive directors because it's thankless, because it's so easy to point fingers, and everyone has an opinion. So for you specifically, John, I just want to stress, you don't understand, but you have to be willing to educate yourself about what it takes to manage a downtown before you say that again, because I personally am offended by it. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephanie.
I wanted to go back to your question because I answered it a little bit short, even though that is truly my answer. You asked how are we going to fundraise, and there's a big difference between intending to fundraise and not to fundraise. So, but I wanted to expand upon that to make you all feel a little better. So last fiscal year of 2017, when we didn't need to fundraise and we didn't have any intention, we raised $2,319.63. This current year that we're in, when we've had a very strong intention of fundraising, we've so far raised $11,100, and we're halfway through.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully that will be seen as a weather vane of.
Does anyone else on the board?
I'm sorry, 12,100.
Oh, Dick, I'm sorry.
Two sides to every coin. Ted, thank you for your candidness here this evening. I think that's the most candid I've ever heard anybody speak about the shortcomings of the organization and who the people are that were actually doing the work. Because I have been a part of that board when I got off of the board that you sit on. I was on that board for 3.5 years. And I'm on the design committee. So I may have been critical where, when I sat up there, but I showed my determination to make the organization better by volunteering my time in more ways than I care to speak about here this evening. And I take great enjoyment from the things that I do for the downtown. I have a vested interest, just as several of the people have spoken of behind me. But having said that there needs to be accountability. That if there's no accountability, then why are we even here in front of you? When I hear people going 20 vacancies, that's right. And there's an ebb and flow. And do I disagree that there's an attack on downtowns in terms of Amazon and Google? I don't disagree at all. But I also look at what our downtown has and offers, and you're not getting that on Google, and you're not getting that on Amazon. This is quite a melting pot, and it's not just the store owners that make the downtown great. There are artists, there are bookstores, and different events that go on that make us unique, and it's not because of BAB, DBA, or in fact the chamber either. My business and my wife's store is no better or worse because of DBA, BAB, or the Chamber of Commerce. I can't give them credit or criticize them when business is bad, and I would never do that, nor do I give them credit when business is good. It is, there are times when there are tons of people around and nobody spends money. That's not BAB's fault or DBA's fault. It is what it is when you're in business. And if you feel that you have the right mousetrap, then you get a storefront. There's no guarantee of success. There's no organization that guarantees you success when you open a storefront. And we're very fortunate to have full storefronts. They are unique. And if you listen to people in Brattleboro, they go, oh, that's just for tourists. And so we don't have an overwhelmingly strong support. I'm not saying that there's a lot of people that do shop downtown, and they need to shop downtown. And I've always said when I sat up there, if you want full storefronts, you have to support them in every way. But it's about accountability and making sure that the organization is doing what it was supposed to do and why it was formed. And if people want to ask those questions, as I said at the meeting for the vote, this should be a reverse dunk, an easy layup. And when somebody talked about the vote, what was it, 27-4? There was a lot of $25 bills who are members that got to vote on this budget. Well, guess what? They're not paying the freight. Now, I hope you change the ordinance to say that everybody who is a member, then we're going to divvy the bill up for the 88 owners and all the other people who are members of that. And then we'll see how many people are members of the organization. People get to vote on a financial component and have no skin in the game in terms of the payment. And that's always been a craw on my side. I have to ask you a question about the budget. I did ask this at the annual meeting, and it's right here in black and white. So if you turn to the last page of the 2016-2017 budget, I asked what the surplus was. They didn't have that answer. The treasurer wasn't there, so I'll certainly give them a pass. But there's $4,810.24 of surplus money that when the year ended on June 30th. And what happened there is when you didn't have that figure before you, the body doesn't get to decide what to do with that money. And so here we are today. I didn't hear any discussion about that. And it's not when you look at the budget that's proposed on the last page. And I don't think that the organization would have any authority to say, well, we're going to take that money and put it here without the body's approval. And I'm not asking you to kick this back for a revote, but I would like to have that addressed and say, as a minimum, this money gets set aside until the body gets to act on it next year.
Can I ask you a question?
Can you answer that question for me?
Can I ask you, I'm sorry, Stephanie, because there's a different budget, there's a different surplus figure on the balance sheet. Do you know what the difference between that is?
I'm looking,
The balance-
P&L versus balance sheet.
The balance sheet said the surplus is $17,740.74.
That's on
The
page 1.
2017 balance sheet?
Yeah, as of June 30th, 2017.
Oh, okay,
Mine
yeah.
says-
Portrait.
Yeah, so that's an
Yeah.
asset, and that, there is a category, so this is the old bookkeeper, old staffing, and,
Okay.
and the way that it was coded was that surplus money that had been designated for certain things, then when it was put into its own pot called surplus money, rather than going into the budget of how it was allocated. So if it was allocated for design, it wasn't pulled out separately. And so this 17,000,
That's not great. Yeah, 774.
It's
Yeah.
all sevens and fours.
yeah, that is not current year, that was a carryover surplus money,
Okay.
is my understanding.
But
And so
you're
what
asking
we're
something
do-
different.
What our figure is right now, that we're operating under, is that there was 11,177.07 left over from FY16, which we already discussed last select board. We already allocated that. And then this current year, there's 4,810.24 fiscal year. And Dick is asking, that has not been allocated by the membership body. The board looked at that and said, to my understanding, Ted can disagree with me, looked at that number and said, that's not a large enough, a substantial enough number to go back to the select board and say, we want to use this money this way. And so the board said, we're going to put the $4,810.24 to the promotions committee and allocated it that way.
And I guess I would argue the point or say that the board doesn't have authority to just say, we're going to do this with this surplus money. And they're never going to come out at zero. And I'm sure if the figure was much, much smaller, that it would be a moot point. But this is actually more money than the $3,000 that was applied to reduce the burden on the taxpayers last year. And so I do think it is a substantial amount of money that, and again, I'm not asking the organization to go back and get approval to put it in promotions, but I do believe that they don't have the authority to use it as they wish.
Ted?
This has been a significant issue for Dick, who is incredibly diligent and hardworking, and has been a godsend to the board while he was on the board. He raised it at our annual meeting, and I just don't think it has a lot of traction with the members, because the members didn't really delve into the weeds to that degree of precision that Dick has. And overwhelmingly, the members were supportive of the budget that we put together. I don't quite understand what Dick's talking about, how we don't have the authority to reinvest this in promotions. I don't quite understand what he means by that, but I would like to make another comment. We have had a history over the last 2 or 3 years of having surpluses, which on the one hand might be a good thing in the sense that we are frugal and we don't spend money we don't have, and we don't spend money willy-nilly. We've had a history in the last few years of surpluses. So on the one hand, I think that's commendable, but to a certain extent, you have to understand it also is a lost opportunity. And we haven't had the manpower and we haven't had the hours.
Ted, it's people power.
I stand corrected. To spend that money prudently. So that's been part of our problem is we spend less than we have the ability to spend because we're careful and we're frugal, and that's a good thing, but the bad side is it's a lost opportunity. There was a year where we said, let's give $3,000 back to the town as a demonstration of appreciation that we got more than we needed. So, depending on how you look at it, we feel like we're level funded because we're going back to the 78. You could take the point of view, well, you gave us 3 back last year, so you're asking for 3 more. In any event, it's not a ton of money. And I think the board, for all of its strengths and weaknesses, really has been a very frugal board. We don't spend money we don't have. We have more ability this year with our executive director to take advantages of the opportunity to really invest. That's what we're doing. We're investing in the town. So that's my commentary on the budget surplus that seems to come up from time to time over the years. And
So,
I know Dick has concerns.
I do have a question for you, Ted. Then, can you show me in the detail here where the $4,010 for $4,810 is in this detailed budget?
I can't.
4,000 what? The surplus?
4,800.
Yeah, the surplus is not in the detailed budget because that's FY19. The surplus will be spent in FY18. Yes. Well, that was our intention because the surplus is from FY17.
And it would go towards FY18's budget,
Why do we want to wait an entire year to spend money?
because that's the way the process works. And when you, last year, if you remember correctly, you got the body's approval to spend the surplus as you so wish. You did not do that this year at the annual meeting, so there's surplus, there's $4,800 of surplus money, and I don't see it applied to the budget. And I certainly didn't hear any discussions at all anywhere about having it applied to the existing current budget.
I want to also bring up something with so again, we made income of $2,319.63. Our surplus is $4,810.24. So we're saying it's a surplus, but actually the surplus is only $1,790.41. We don't want to be, I don't know if we're being penalized for surplus, but we don't want to be, certainly don't want to be penalized for income that we brought in.
Right.
So we really should be talking about $1,790.41.
Okay. I think we all understand that issue.
Yeah.
As much as we need to, I
Yes.
think. Yeah.
Does anyone else, did you want to say something?
Well, yeah, I definitely came to this with some concerns that probably are different than others because I'm new to the board. And you and I sat down and I feel a lot better about it. But, you know, just for the sake of being in the public, I want to reiterate a few of the concerns that I had. And one of them was not only the functionality of the board from the outside perspective, but also some of the conversation that was had in public forums by a member of the board that I felt was not in the spirit of supporting downtown Brattleboro. And for me, you know, I worked at BSNL for a long time, and you know, even if stuff's burning down around you, you are the cheerleader. I was the cheerleader of BSNL, not that BSNL's burned down. And members of the board and members of the organization of DBA are the cheerleaders of downtown Brattleboro. And while it is always good and prudent to acknowledge both sides of our town, the light and the dark, the words that we use are words that we are held accountable to. And that was a serious concern that I had. I also had concern about the first time that I saw paperwork that came out regarding the budget. From looking at a lot of budgets over the last years, I didn't find them to be detailed enough to give me, on one hand, I hear what you said about why are we quibbling about this, and on the other hand, I feel that part of my position is to be a steward of tax dollars, to make sure that I have a full understanding of taxes. Even though they're assessed through the DID specifically, it's still tax dollars that we are responsible for collecting. I will say that you and I had Stephanie and I had a very thorough meeting. I am pleased with your ideas. I am pleased with the idea of Google Docs. I think that's brilliant, as long as nobody has edit capabilities with 100 and some odd people touching your stuff. I did shiver for a minute when you said that. I appreciate, you know, another thing that gave me confidence is your new alliances with people like Aaron Skaggs and new board members that have come on, like Mike Ekblom, people that I know have innovative and forward-thinking ideas and are very committed to the community, as you are. And those are some of the examples of, at first, why I was coming to this table originally saying, I've got concerns, and for me, they're big ones based on how I think about things fundamentally, but how I am now saying that I have confidence in you. I have confidence that you have the ability to be transparent, that you have the communication skills that represent this organization and therefore represent our town. I am pleased with the alliances you've made, and I like the ideas that you've come up with, and I am a supporter of you and of DBA at this time.
Does anybody else on the board? I think the question for us is, do we need any more information from the DBA board to make a decision on their budget? I mean, is there anything that we need them to tell us that we don't know, or we think we might know?
Can I, this is mostly from my own education, and I think the public's too. I'm a little confused about how the membership operates versus the assessment. In other words, how do you mesh those two concerns? You have some folks here that are clearly paying a lot of the assessment because of the amount of buildings they own and their value, versus you have some memberships that very few people pay memberships, because you quoted a number of $450 or something.
Last fiscal year.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's building, right?
No. So a property owner is automatically a member because they pay the tax.
Okay.
Any business, organization, or resident can sign up to become a member, and that's $25 a year.
And then they become voting members?
And then they become voting members if they have paid their dues. So DBA treats all members equally. And DBA also treats businesses that haven't signed up to be members, we're just as welcoming. So they can still come to the monthly business meeting. They can still get our emails, all of that.
Okay.
It's just like the town, you know, the people who own property pay the taxes, but everybody can vote. So the state set it up in a similar fashion for the DID. The downtown designated group was welcome to invite guests and members in, even though they're not taxpayers.
That's sort of what I was getting at with my question. I'm just, this is my own personal view. I'm always concerned about democracy, and even within your organization, which we have limited desire, I think, even to get our fingers in too much. But there are members, right, that have certain ideas, and you have to push and pull and struggle with that. And perhaps there's some members that, because they pay more in, literally, they feel that they have a little bit more weight. So that's my only concern with the structure of the organization. And that's not really something I'm asking you to come back at me with, but I think that's out there as sort of, it's an odd situation it's not an enviable situation for you.
I don't think we feel that way because our marching orders are so clear that it's equal weighted. There are members that you heard Dick speak, his view is that he doesn't like that. But in terms of the board and myself, it's clear what the ordinance says. So it doesn't feel conflicting to me.
The lion's share of the work is done by the board of directors. And I say very earnestly, because you all are so well informed and so well connected, if you know of the next generation of leaders and the next generation of people who are passionate about preserving downtown Brattleboro, we would love to have them on our board. Love to have them on our board.
Yeah, and I honestly want, something that really makes me feel very good about going forward is I've been spying on Erin Skagg's work on Facebook and everything. I've talked to her a few times, and the kind of energy she brings she's on the board now, right?
Yep.
Is Aaron Rich still on the board? Or
yes, yeah.
He's a friend of mine too. So yeah. I mean, I think Stephanie's really injecting a lot of good energy. So I just wanted to echo Brandy's comments about feeling pretty good about the future, and it may be naive, according to John's view. I'm not sure. But that's my attitude right now. I just wanted to say that.
So do we need any more information? Do we have all the information we need? That's the big question.
We need a motion.
I don't think we need a motion.
Well, we can make it now, or we can do it in January when we talk about the downtown.
Bless you.
Whatever people want.
I have no problem with it. Whatever you
I
want.
can't think of a reason to wait and add to our legal working list.
Do we have to word it in a certain way because it's going to go on the warning?
I think it's appropriate for the select board to phrase this motion in just giving your approval to what's been presented to you, if you're inclined to provide that approval. There will be very specific wording that's brought to you as part of the town meeting warning to make sure that that's phrased properly to put in front of the town meeting.
Right.
So would the motion be we approve the annual work plan, budget, and town meeting article?
I think we need to have a dollar figure.
Not and town meeting article.
Okay.
No, but we have to have a dollar figure in. We have to say 78,000, don't we?
You will in the article.
Okay. So do we have to say it right now?
I don't believe you do. I think you often say as presented.
Okay, so we want to,
Yeah, so I move we approve the annual work plan and budget of the Downtown Brattleboro Alliance as presented.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the annual work plan and budget of the Downtown Brattleboro Alliance as presented. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone? No. Anyone abstaining? I'm abstaining. I always have, so it's no reflection on anything. I always do. So it's 4 yes, 1 abstaining. And I'm only abstaining because I'm on the board. Just want to make that my disclaimer, as I said in the beginning. So what we're going to do on the January 2nd meeting is we're going to have a discussion about the reapplication to the state, and we're going to talk about that at that meeting, the January 2nd meeting, because we have to make the 5-year reapplication. So that we'll have that conversation then. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Really
Stephanie.
appreciate it.
Thanks, Ted.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to take a break until 8:30, or really 8:32 or something like that. Whatever 5 minutes is from now. 8:31. Next up is the Vermont Climate Pledge Coalition. It's a recommendation from the Energy Committee and the staff, and I don't know who's going to do the presentation
Sure,
on
I'll
this.
kick off, and Michael, please speak up if you have something to add. So the Energy Committee was before you back in the fall, made several different recommendations to you at that time. One of them was for an energy pledge, climate-related pledge to be adopted by the board, and you did, in fact, on September 19th, adopt the following. Brattleboro should do its part to achieve or exceed the goals of the Paris Climate Accord and the Vermont Comprehensive Energy Plan. The Brattleboro Selectboard commits the municipality to meeting these goals for greenhouse gas reduction and renewable energy adoption, and asks every household, organization, and business in town to do the same. We commit to joining these state, national, international initiatives that best represent the intent of the Paris Climate Accord, and request that the Energy Committee track and inform us concerning appropriate options for us to sign on to. There's been work that's gone on through the fall. The Energy Committee has looked at a number of different options. Staff has as well. And recently we rallied around the Vermont Climate Pledge Coalition as being the most appropriate for the town to sign on to. We're jointly recommending that to you today. The Energy Committee approved this recommendation at its last meeting, and staff is happy to also recommend that you authorize me on behalf of the town to sign on. What the Vermont Climate Pledge Coalition is and why we think it best represents the way for the town to fulfill this commitment is there are a number of different ones. There's mayors around the country. There are other national scale groups that have formed. There are groups that have formed within certain types of business organizations. This one is cutting across both the public sector and the private sector here in Vermont. It was organized initially by the mayor of Burlington and the governor. And it's been supported by the Vermont League of Cities and Towns. There are currently 5 municipalities participating, and I believe there will be more over time. But there's also a couple of dozen different private organizations that are involved, and some public organizations that are not municipalities. So it's a good cross-section, and it's the Vermont sort of forum where this is occurring. It does not, joining the Vermont Climate Pledge Coalition will not commit the town to expending dollars or pursuing projects that the town doesn't otherwise choose to pursue and to fund. But it provides the location where, together with our partners across the state, we will name those commitments and then track the impacts of those commitments. So this is work that we would be doing anyway. But it's in the public forum of the Vermont Energy Dashboard, I believe they call it, the Community Energy Dashboard, which is the location on the web where the participating organizations in the Vermont Climate Pledge Coalition will be tracking our performance and sort of aggregating our results. So it looks to us like the proper way for the town to make a more public, explicit commitment to doing our part for the climate in a way that is in conjunction with others in Vermont and consistent with the positions that the Select Board has taken, that you want to be a part of this solution and you want to have the town be a leader in this, but you want not to have other parties tell you what actions the town has to take. And we think that this fulfills all of that.
Does anybody on the board have any comments or questions about this? Because pretty much all you want us to do is authorize you to add the town.
The reason that's all you have to do is that this is all an electronic process, so there's not a contract to sign or anything like that. It's, if you say yes to this tonight, then town staff will enter us into the coalition on the site and will begin entering data as appropriate as we have data to put up related to the actions that town government takes in fulfillment of the pledges that we make. The private tracking, or I should say the tracking of private initiatives in the community will be done by energy committee members or the energy coordinator or the private entities themselves. But we're not taking on the responsibility of tracking all the different actions that will go on in Brattleboro by all the different parties who will do, take positive steps in this regard. We are committing ourselves to the staff resources necessary to track and post our own performance as town government and our own projects. Frankly, that's work we would be doing anyway, just to monitor those projects and make sure they were successful. And so we think that the additional step of posting that to the dashboard is appropriate and not burdensome.
Does anyone on the board have any questions, comments? Anyone in the public have any questions or comments about this?
Yeah, Michael Bosworth, Chair of the Energy Committee. Just briefly, two things, and Peter already brought it up, but the Vermont Pledge Coalition is not just municipalities, it's any business can participate and then put their own actions in for a town to be really into, fully sort of getting out the pledge, then a lot of businesses, it would be good to have a lot of businesses participate. And so I think part of what our energy coordinator, Phoebe, who's away for the holidays, would be doing a lot of that sort of outreach work. And I think we have a very good energy coordinator who's good at outreach, so I think that's a good fit as well. So I just think this is a good step for the town as a whole to take, the municipality, but the town as a whole today to take, and for the municipalities to sort of take leadership in. So, thanks.
Great. Does somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to authorize the town manager to add the town as a member of the Vermont Climate Pledge Coalition.
We have a motion to authorize the town manager to add the town as a member of the Vermont Climate Pledge Coalition. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Now we need to go on to matters regarding the proposed FY19 budget. And we have a memo, correct?
You do. And for the benefit of the public who may be following along at home, the memo, because of the fact that our last budget meeting was just Thursday evening, the memo did not go out as part of the notebook. So if somebody's following along that notebook for this meeting, this memo is not there, but it was separately posted to the website and was distributed widely to the community. Everybody who gets any of the town's agendas or warnings also received a copy of this yesterday when you were receiving it. So may I summarize it?
Yes, please do.
So what's before you is the list of items that I believe are unfinished business for this year's budget. So we've had 5 meetings so far. We've met for the one long day when we reviewed line items in the operational budgets for every department. And then we've had relatively shorter discussions of anywhere from a half an hour to an hour and a half in the midst of select board meetings on weekday evenings regarding certain components of the budget. So the most recent one was about the potential increases in levels of service. Prior to that, we looked at the capital plan. Prior to that, we looked at revenues. So we're at a place now where you've been through everything that is proposed and everything that you have raised as potential additional items for consideration in soup to nuts in the budget that you will ultimately adopt. But there's choices to be made because I believe that we're not going to be able to afford everything that's being considered. Or at least you'll have to consider a tax increase that's greater than what I initially proposed back on November 1st, if we are to fund everything that's been considered. And so the following items, if it's all right, I'll just name them, are the ones that we believe are still subject to further consideration by the board. And there are, for about half of these, additional information that you've requested from us. And so the purpose of tonight's item is to make sure that if there's anything that you think is missing from this list, anything I failed to put on it that you believe is still an open item, I need to know that from you so we can make sure we address that together in January. And especially if related to any such item or any of these items, there is additional information you need in order to make an informed decision. We need to know that so that we can be working on that between now and when you address these items in January. So
can we ask questions as we go through each one?
Sure.
Okay, great.
Yep, that's a good idea. So the first is the HR professional position that I've recommended, and you've asked for a survey of other Vermont municipalities. Who has one and what do they pay? The second is the fire department's aerial ladder truck. There's a number of different financing options that we've looked at there. You want additional information about those. One that we casually referred to as the layaway plan is where there's already been $50,000 cash allocated to that in the current year's budget. There could be a $450,000 allocation without exceeding or penetrating into that 10% reserve that we talked about earlier tonight under John's report. And that would get us to $500,000 out of a $950,000 purchase, with the balance, if possible, to be funded with cash next year. That would be the layaway plan option. There are a number of different other financing alternatives that would involve borrowing of one sort or another, and we're going to develop that information for you, bring it so that you can see those choices. And in the most recent discussion of that vehicle, there was some discussion about what if we nursed along the 24-year-old vehicle that we have recently put into service, and then rented a vehicle at times when that truck had to go out for repairs. So we need to look more at what the availability and the cost of such rentals is so that we can address that with you.
So a couple questions. In the budget you first presented us, was there $16,000 in there for financing, for the finance, the debt service?
There was $15,000, right? So if we don't borrow for the truck this year,
not going to make much difference.
Right. So I'm not going to characterize little difference or big difference. That's for the five of you to decide. What I would say is that $15,000 will show as a deduct. We're going to, at the next meeting on January 2nd, armed with your direction from this discussion tonight and all the different changes that have occurred so far as we've gone along. So, for instance, the insurances we know are different from what was in the proposed budget. So when we present the materials for the January 2nd meeting, we're going to show you a table that says this is where we started, these are the things that have changed, and this is where we are right now. As you go down below that, there'll be sort of a menu of these things of different impacts, one way or the other, as you get to making decisions about them.
And then one other question. The layaway plan to buy with cash, $50,000 in FY18.
Yes.
That means that we're going to take $50,000 from our current budget and put it in I'm not going to physically move it, but it's going to go, yeah. It's going to set that aside. And then in 19, the budget that we're looking at will anticipate the capital transfer.
Right, and so the $50,000 is already part of the capital transfer that has occurred for FY18. That was going to be the matching money for the grant if we had received the grant to buy this vehicle.
Okay, I forgot that.
So that money, if we don't set it aside for this truck, would actually fall to capital fund balance that you could allocate to other purposes if you chose to.
Or save it for the fire truck.
Right, but yes. And so what the more formal way to refer to this layaway plan option would be a sinking fund. So the money, as you say, you don't actually move it to a different place, but the term of art is that there's a sinking fund, and you put money into that fund until you've collected enough money to be able to make the purchase that you're saving for. So, that option is available to you if we don't proceed this year. If we proceed this year, we're going to need to borrow a substantial amount of the purchase.
Can you remind me if Can you remind me if the HR professional was already added into the final number that we had here? I can't
It
remember.
is in the
It
number
is,
that's
okay.
before you, and again, you're going to see that more clearly. What the purpose of this discussion tonight was about was for me to make sure that I understood from all of you what's not finished. When we present the opening of the discussion next time, it's going to be really clear before you as to what's in and what's not, what would have to be added, and what's been changed.
I'm sorry, but since Brandy went back to HR, there was one thing I forgot to say.
Sorry.
It feels like we're not making any progress, but we are. The survey of other Vermont municipalities, I would just want to insert in there, if we find a number of municipalities that have an HR professional, I would really want to know what's the number of employees that professional is.
Sure.
So you're comparing
Yes.
comparables.
So you'd like some data
Or
about
not,
the
but-
municipalities who have
Maybe
it?
like Rutland.
Yeah, if that's okay, just to expand it. It's not changing it, it's just
Sure.
expanding the ask a little bit.
So,
Yep, that's fine.
Thank you.
Brandy's got your calendar.
I was like, is this approximately 7,776 list? Would that sound like a dollar number that's about right to you?
I'm sorry?
Hold on 1 second.
Like this list,
Yes.
is this totaling up over 700K? If I'm looking at this right?
With the area
Actually,
list
probably with the truck.
with the 450.
yeah, I would urge you not to try to do that tonight, because some of these items are already in the budget, and you would, your question, the question before you will be whether to leave them there or take them out or reduce them or increase them or whatever. Some of these items, probably more than half, are not yet in the budget, so they would involve increasing the commitment for next year. That's the task for what we're going to set out for on January 2nd, and then do through the through January, is to make those choices. And you'll see basically in real time from week to week, we're going to show you where we are with a tax rate, depending on what else you decide to either take out or put in.
Okay, good. I always like to stay grounded. It
You're
needs to be
going
grounded.
to need to see that in order to make your final decisions. This is not meant to be a decision-making document. It's meant to be a taking stock of whether we understand as staff accurately what you still need from us, or whether you need something else.
Okay. Franz?
Franz Reichman from the Finance Committee. One thing with regard to the ladder truck that I'd like to hear more about, and I think others probably would too, is the prospects for some additional grant funding, which has been mentioned from time to time, but never very specifically, and deadlines didn't quite get mentioned, or anyway, just that there's a good process in place for that, I think would be helpful. Thank you.
We'll mention that.
I did ask that question.
Yeah, sure.
Yep. You got that other grant
Keep
opportunity.
trying.
Keep asking.
Okay,
Let's keep
ready to move on?
Yep.
So the next item is the second sidewalk plow and the labor to operate it. We don't believe you need any additional information from us on that. It's just something you still need to think about. Okay? The next is modifying the LED streetlights on Main Street to provide more light on the street and sidewalks. And you've asked for more information from Public Works regarding the different options that are available for how to provide more light. Implicit bias training for $10,000. No, again, no additional information needed, just a decision to be made.
Yep.
Same with the Human Services Review Committee's recommendation to increase funding this year. A pending decision for the board, but not any additional information that you need from us. The Day Work Jobs Program that we might create in conjunction with Groundworks, you need more information from both Groundworks and the town staff on that. We've provided only conceptual report to you so far. We hope to be able to provide you some definitive cost information in time for that to be factored into this budget. I don't know for sure that we're going to get there, but we'll keep you abreast of that as we get further along in our review. And then you had requests from Green Up Day and the Southern Vermont Watershed Alliance to provide some funding to those organizations. And the board itself added an item of possible funding for the skate park. DBA funding you actually addressed this evening, so I'll take that off the list. There will be a separate warning item needed for the CEVEDS funding request, and that'll come from program income. As we talked about earlier, there's some we're at a point with program income right now where we need to be kind of cautious, so we'll provide some additional information so you can make an informed decision on that item. And then since the last meeting of the board, we've received a new request from the group that hangs the We Celebrate Democracy, Civil Rights for All banner over Main Street. They've asked for the opportunity to hang that banner up to 15 times for free without paying the fee that's attached to that during FY19. They are prepared to seek signatures for a petition to put that as a ballot item for a town meeting. They've asked that we present to you the possibility that you might place it on the ballot. I advised them that I would do that. I also advised them that in recent years, requests like that have been declined so that there was an initial gauge of the community's interest through the petition signing process.
Yeah, and I think it's important for us, if we're going to discuss that, for people on the board to understand that's probably about $1,500 lost revenue to the. I think it's $100.
It's actually more than that. Yeah,
that's
because it's more than 100 piece now.
It's lost revenue to the fire department. So I think we need to understand. Everybody, we have to have that discussion as a board to understand that.
So there's a couple of different things. I don't know how much you want to go into that tonight, but there's not only the revenue issue. There's also a level playing field issue because pretty much everybody who pays to put the banner up is a good cause of one type or another. It's not a business advertising opportunity. Right. So I promised I would bring this along to you. I think it's difficult for the town to allow any exceptions.
I think it's also, particularly with topics like this, it's an opportunity for the advocates to get out and get 400 people to say, yeah, we want this, so that when it comes to the town meeting, it's already expressed.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's really, it's sort of like, the select board's putting an obstacle in the way. We could just say it because we know that the town likes it and it would be fine, but that's not always the case.
Right.
But it's always the case that the more public outreach you do, the stronger your issue is going to be. So I don't know if we want to act, or if we should act right now and say, please do the petition, because we think that's the best way to do it.
I think it belongs in town meeting. The reps should be discussing this.
Yeah.
Well, if you want the reps to discuss it, we can put it on the ballot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And what I'm saying is that, and the other way is that they get petitions and it goes on the warning.
On the vote for the townwide vote on town meeting day.
Yeah.
That's where they're headed, unless you choose to do something different with it of your own initiative.
Yeah.
If you're prepared this evening to decide that matter, I'll take your direction. I'll get back to them. If you want more information, we'll put it on an agenda for January.
I don't support taking it up because of the same argument that you just pointed out.
The Red Cross is going to want to come and say, why do we have to pay? If you look at the banners over Main, this is a good cause. I have nothing against it. But
all good causes have to pay.
Right. Everybody's going to think that they shouldn't have to pay.
Somebody's got to pay the firemen to put the thing up and all the equipment that it takes.
Yeah.
Is that? Yeah. I think I'm hearing three voices and maybe more. Yes. Is there anybody who wants to speak up for actually considering it in January?
And
I'll speak up and say, personally, I think it's something that should go to the reps because I think that's what their job is. I know that would mean that we would discuss it. However, I'm also outvoted, so I just speak up.
Okay.
So I'm looking at it like that.
So I'm going to advise the requesters that the board asks them to seek the petition signatures necessary to put it on the ballot.
To bring some blank petitions to the select board so we can get signatures.
And is that by a majority of 4 to 1?
Yeah, that's
Are we voting on that?
Oh, we should make a motion if we're going to vote.
No, I'm just asking what the majority is here.
Oh.
Is that a majority of 4 to 1?
Yeah, I'm getting a sense of the board. If you want to take an action, please do. I'm getting a sense that the board majority does not want to take this up in January.
My vote was, it's not a vote, but my sense was to not take an action, not to vote against.
Right.
So,
right.
There's a little.
Right. The issue here is if you don't take it up, they will seek the signatures.
Right.
Because that's their route. If you're not going to put it on the ballot, then their route to the ballot is through the signature process.
Yeah.
And they understand that already. sufficient.
So, can we go back to one issue quickly?
Yes.
The skate park.
Sure.
The what?
The skate park. The skate park.
Oh,
John Allen, the John Allen Skate Park.
No, enough drama for one night, John.
No, this is, I'm just wondering what everybody's thoughts are on that.
Well, you know what my thoughts
I know.
My thoughts are, do it.
Okay, because I've had some letters.
We all have, yeah.
I know. So, but I'm going to throw out a challenge too.
Oh, yeah?
That if, what is my 6-month stipend?
3,000.
Yeah, no, what is the
Oh,
6 month?
1,500.
1,500. I will contribute that. If we can match the 20,000 that we put in, I'm throwing this out to the public. If we can raise another 20 to put it 40 in, I'm putting my $1,500 in right now.
Nice.
Okay, so I'm just making that an incentive for town reps to vote this in.
That's not a motion.
That's not a motion.
Got it.
No.
It's a personal commitment.
Remember that we're streaming live on Facebook.
I gave 100 so far.
Yeah, well, that's my
But that's very, that's a nice idea.
that's my challenge.
So that's.
Kathy doesn't know about it. Sorry, honey. No vacation.
I was just going to ask that would staff like us to eliminate any? Or sort of.
Our goal here isn't to winnow or to build. It's to just make sure that we're all on the same page, so we don't get ourselves right at the edge of the end of the process, and somebody's saying, "Well, how come you didn't bring back X?"
Yeah.
So I believe that with the two, yes,
X.
Getting
all of the rooms and meals tax instead of paying the state for the service. It's come up several times.
Yep.
And I haven't to date gotten the response in terms of there's something about charter change and all that.
Yeah, that's it. So because it requires a charter change, it can't affect this budget, but we do owe you a report about that, so you can know whether or not you want to pursue a change.
Great.
Yep.
It's the only thing I can think of.
Finance Committee?
Hi. With regard to the streetlights, as I recall, when it was presented, there was a question of hiring an expert lighting engineer, designer type person, and the number that was put on the table was $20,000 for that. And I was just wondering how that number was, where it originated and why it's so big. It seemed to me that there might be a chance at getting some really useful, helpful information about what the options are. I don't know how familiar the Public Works Department is with what the various LED lighting choices might be. And I was just thinking it would seem to me a substantially lower sum, we might be able to contract with someone to get some good advice on that.
So the $20,000 would have actually been a really comprehensive study of lighting systems and the capital expense that we would have anticipated from projects of various scales to add lighting, infrastructure. For instance, the example that was thrown out was that there was a very rough number for doing the west side of Main Street to match what's on the east side of Main Street. The point was that if we're going to undertake an infrastructure expansion project for the town's street lighting system, we ought to not do that by throwing a few poles here and a few poles there. We ought to have an engineered study that recommends, you could do this much or this much or this much, and the different potential impacts and potential costs of those. That wouldn't be just a little piece of work. The piece of work, the board said we don't want to spend $20,000 on that.
It's gone.
The board did say they want more information from DPW in the work that DPW is doing together with Green Mountain Power about, for instance, if the mast arm on the existing lights on Main Street could be modified to take twice as much light or 3 times as much light or something like that, using the existing LED infrastructure, but to just provide more brightness out of that infrastructure to the street and the sidewalk. That work is easier to do because there's not, you're not looking at as many variables. You're just saying what can our current poles and mast arms handle, and if the mast arms can't handle what would provide a substantial amount of additional light. What does it cost to put a new mast on the existing poles? So that was the context of the discussion. DPW is already underway with looking at that further with Green Mountain Power. To the extent that DPW might need some expert engineering experience or assistance on that, the cost of a little bit of engineering is more in line with what you're thinking. You know, can't we get something for a few $1,000s? The answer to that would be yes, if we need a little bit of help with that, just to make sure that we're bringing back vetted information to the board. And the operating budget includes small sums to be used, you know, in a flexible manner when these kinds of things come up. So that's why that doesn't involve an ask for additional funding.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. When we put in our LEDs at the Brattleboro Tennis Club, Efficiency Vermont paid for a lighting designer to come down and look at the club and suggest what we needed. So it just seemed to me there might be some other options. And not just looking at those arms and those specific 2040 type bulb systems, but, you know, just step back a little bit and say, well, what's out there?
So here's what I think is the fatal flaw in that. I like what you're thinking, especially the idea that can't we get somebody else to help in a way that it doesn't cost the taxpayers money. We would love for that to be true. The tricky part about this one is that happened when the town went from the old style lighting to the LEDs. We received Efficiency Vermont funding and we received help from others. So the looking at the options and designing a system and going from the old higher consuming system to the more energy efficient, more cost efficient system was something that Efficiency Vermont, for instance, would participate in. In this instance, every light in our system is already the LED, energy efficient, cost efficient light. What we're saying is, gee, maybe we went too far. It's really nice to save the $65,000 a year, but maybe we need some more light in some of the areas of our town. So this next iteration is how much more energy are we going to consume? How much more light are we going to provide? And we're just not going to have available to us those same resources that helped us scale down.
So we're thinking about wrapping various things on the west side of the Christmas lights.
Or solar lights, like Tim said.
Yeah, solar lights.
Okay.
We should talk to Stephanie
But
about
I'd still talk to Efficiency Vermont and see if they want to help out so that we aren't putting up new lights that aren't needed when there might be existing technologies that would make that unnecessary. So, anyway.
So, I think that's a fair point if we were doing the larger study, but I need to know what the board wants, and my understanding of what the board wants is the more narrow look at using our existing infrastructure. What is sort of a minimum investment that can be made to provide more light on Main Street and in the downtown area?
Are you saying
and if that's what we're doing,
are you saying that Efficiency Vermont is free?
Ish.
Well, it was for us when we. I mean, I'm really. This is just an idea that I had. But if you needed some way to persuade Efficiency Vermont that this really was in pursuit of efficiency, and might then not have you coming back to them later for something that would be a bigger project. I'm trying to think what would appeal to them to get them involved in.
We'll ask.
Anyway, so.
Well, I mean, it doesn't hurt to ask. It doesn't hurt to ask.
But I think anything we propose, the Energy Committee is going to have a look at. Okay. And we'll pursue that too.
I think we were also trying to buy ourselves a little time to sort of figure out what is the need before we commit to either time or money in solving.
I got the clear direction, I thought, from the board last time to keep this small.
Yes.
This is not we're not undertaking the
big thing,
large scope revisiting of how to improve this system.
I'm voting for small too, just so you know.
Small.
Okay.
All right, so I think we're all.
Schedule a meeting.
Do you feel like you got what you need?
I have exactly what I need from you, unless there's anything you think is missing.
No.
Okay, great. Let me make a quick note about that Efficiency Vermont, and then we'll go through the schedule of meetings.
Here.
It's pretty pretty straightforward, every Tuesday until.
Yeah, so that's what I'm proposing is, we'll have limited availability on the 2nd to take a couple of bites out of this. We'll provide you that financial status of here's where we are and here's what the menu looks like. And Brandy specifically, that'll come to an aggregated total of if you did it all, it would look like this.
Good. I like projections.
So,
As many as I
so
can see.
yeah, so you'll have a better sense then of the financial challenge that we need to get through over those 3 weeks. And then I think January 9th is especially important. So we'll take a first bite out of it in as efficient a way as we can on the 2nd, but you're going to have a lot of other business to do that night.
Right.
On the 9th, we can devote ourselves just to what remains to be decided about the budget, hopefully make a lot of progress towards the end point. And then we would still have the regular meeting on the 16th to finish anything up that needs to be finished up, so that on the 23rd, we can bring you basically a budget that's ready for you to say, yeah, that's our budget. That's the one we're sending to town meeting. And, you might do some final tweaking that night, but we should really be down to final tweaking on the 23rd.
Does the 23rd have to happen? I'm wondering if we're very efficient, if we'd be able to hit the 16th.
Yeah, if you're ready by the time we finish up on the 9th to commit yourselves to seeing from us the budget that we think could be your final budget on the 16th, then you'll decide on the 16th whether it is your final budget or not.
Adhere to Tim's
I may be super busy.
I know I
understand.
do want that.
But I mean, if we can efficiently get it done.
It doesn't have to
early.
take a ton of time.
It doesn't have to. We're down to a relatively limited list.
You're gonna
Yeah,
have to
and
give
some
up
of them we
your
kind of
9
know where we're going anyway.
release.
And once we start to see the tax implication, it becomes easier.
It does. And harder, actually. But
Well, yeah.
but the task is clearer.
Yes, it's clear, but that's not going to be. I think we should start wine that night.
They want all this time off.
Motion to adjourn?
Okay.
Yeah, is there anything else? Are we all on the same page? Okay, we have a motion to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries 5-0. We'll see everybody in the new year.
Meeting next week, right?
Right after.
I told the sitter no, so I'm not
January
coming.
2nd. Happy
January
New Year.
2nd is the next
You
one.
don't want to meet the day after Christmas?
I don't.